me take this out. Hi, everyone.
Hey.
How are you? Kate, Willett.
I am good, Katie Halper. This is just such a Catherine podcast or live stream. Yeah.
Really Catherine centered, Catherine focused.
Yes, exactly.
We are really excited. I'm really excited about this show. We have with us, as you can see already, Kate Willett, who is a comedian, writer, and podcast host, Reply Guys. And she wrote a really great, moving piece that some people may have seen. In fact, I'm going to share that in a few minutes or seconds, called I hated Bernie Bros until I fell in love with one. I used to hate.
I think it was I hated Bernie Bros until I loved and lost one. Yeah.
Until I loved and lost one. Yeah. And it's really moving. And then we are going to be talking to Ross Barkan, but also at the same time, this is pretty cool. We're going to be playing parts of some interviews I did with Melba Pearson, who is running for state's attorney in Miami-Dade County. And she's running against a woman who, you got some fans already, Kate. She's running against a woman who literally decided not to prosecute prison guards who burnt a man to death in the shower. It's like the grossest thing ever. So it's a really important race. The fan reference I made was to Leslie Johnson commenting, "Yay, hi guys, I love Reply Guys." So guys, you know how I do this really fun thing where I throw the hosting duties to my co-host. Kate is my visiting co-host of today's show. People probably know I have Nando Villa as my staple on Wednesday. He's the constant co-host, and then I rotate co-hosts on Sundays. And so viewers and listeners may remember that last week I had major tech issues. On Wednesday I had tech issues and Nando took over. So I'm not going to do that, but I have to grab water because I forgot to grab water. See, this is why you love this live stream, because who else lets you into that and lets you in on that, so that you know their biological needs. But yeah, I need some water. I don't hydrate enough. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is this. You guys have fans, Kate. I mean, you guys are fans. Kate, you have fans. So Kate, do you mind if I go and grab some water? Do you mind responding to some questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Hydration is really important. It's so a goal of mine every year. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll be right back. Oh, we could play some of your stand-up. Do you want to do that?
Sure. If you want to.
Which is your preference? You want to play something, or do you want to answer some questions?
I don't care. Either one works. I think it depends on how long you need a water break.
Right. It is really water. Okay. Let's give you a chance to answer some questions.
All right. Sounds good. Right.
And if not, you can just do a monologue. Okay. I'll be right back. Like 2 minutes.
Okay. All right, folks. Here we are live from my Brooklyn bedroom. Do you have any questions for a different Katie? I don't know. How's everyone's quarantine going? What are like the main quarantine activities that folks have been getting up to? You can put it in the chat and then I can see it. I can't I don't know if people are commenting, but I can't see it. But anyways, I hope everyone has been having a very good quarantine so far. It's definitely fun to do live streaming from my bedroom. Although I missed people, I have 2 new kittens, and so you may see and hear them during the live stream. They are very small and they fight each other. And so that might be part of tonight's experience, them going at it or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just chilling here. I'm very excited about seeing this interview with Katie and Melba. Looking forward to that. Very excited. And also really excited to meet Ross. I have not met him yet. Katie's back. What's up? Hey. How long have I known Katie? I've known Katie for like a year, 2 years.
I can't see the chats.
What?
Oh, you can't see the chats? They were in Netflix. They were in YouTube. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, I can't see them.
I'm such an idiot. What did you do? How did you handle this?
I said I was excited about the show.
And were you just like expressing how excited you were the whole time?
Yeah, I smiled, which is I've been conditioned to do as a woman in today's society.
Woman, right.
Yes.
Thank God for small favors. I'm really sorry.
Oh, I can now see some stuff in. No, I now can see some.
Yeah, I should have gone over it with you. Anything you want to respond to? Let
me see. So I don't have a specific YouTube channel, but if you search me on YouTube, I have a bunch of stand-up up there. So if you just search for Kate Willett. Texas, I am very sorry about what you're going through there. It feels like it was like New York was a couple months ago, which I know is just really, really super stressful. So my thoughts are with you. Quarantine does suck. Norway, you're opening up, and I hope that it's going better there than it is in the United States, which I would not be surprised. I am sorry. I can't even imagine quarantining with little kids. That seems so challenging. And so, yes, I really, your little one misses Knott's Berry Farm. I hope that your little one gets to go to Knott's Berry Farm soon. Do I like sock puppets? I don't know. I feel like I don't know enough to say. I haven't really seen enough sock puppets to have like a definitive opinion about that.
That's good. Kate, you're very cautious.
Yeah, I mean, I only like to have like a very strong opinion about. So I like to reserve strong opinions for when I'm like really sure about something. Like that we should vote out this prosecutor lady. So. Oh
yeah. Wonderful. Yeah, I'm gonna play you that that video. I mean, the video interview soon, but. Let me just share with you so you guys know about this woman. Not only is Melba really cool and someone that, really needs to be voted in, but I want to share with you what a loser Catherine Rodriguez Rundle's, not only is she a loser who refuses to prosecute these people, she's such a loser that the Miami-Dade Democrats asked her to resign. And then she has 2 loser sons. And let me just share that with you guys. Sun Sentinel. Let's see. This is a cool program because you can share your screen. Let's see. You're like, yeah, a cooler program would be one where I knew how to read the comments, Katie Halper.
My boycotting Goya, I had Goya, I had a lot of beans left over in my pantry, Goya beans from peak quarantine, and I'm still eating the ones that I already had, but I don't think I'll buy new Goya beans.
Okay. So you're like mid boycott.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're about to have this great interview that Kate and I will be, we'll be watching, and you can comment on, obviously. But just as some prep, the woman whom Melba Pearson is trying to defeat, just to get a sense of how the 2 systems of justice work. Her son was arrested. When was this? In 2006, her son was arrested for allegedly trying to steal a car. The second time, that doesn't matter. A Shell gas station attendant told Pinecrest police he saw Evan Carlos Rundle, 22, son of Miami-Dade State Attorney Catherine Fernandez Rundle, apparently tried to hotwire customers' car early Thursday morning. They found him near the gas station, and the attendant identified him. At the time, police said Rundle was intoxicated, stumbling as he walked. He was arrested on burglary and criminal mischief charges. And Fernandez Rundle very movingly said, like any parent, I'm deeply saddened by the incident of this morning involving my son. Obviously, another state attorney's office will be handling this matter. Now, this is not their first rodeo. Evan Rundle and his twin brother, Justin Rundle, have been arrested before. Evan Rundle was arrested in 2000 when he was 17 for allegedly breaking into the Mass Academy, his high school. But this is the really special part. In 2002, Justin Rundle was arrested when he tried to board a flight to Puerto Rico with marijuana in his pocket. The charges were thrown out after he completed a pre-trial diversion program. In 2001, he was also charged with driving under the influence and careless driving after he lost control of a car registered to his mother and crashed it into a ditch. So the reason that I think that's so important is because it really does show the two styles of justice that exist. And it's kind of stunning to me that this is this same woman who was so hard on Darren Rainey, who we'll talk about, that her son got to reap the benefits of kind of more reformed justice system.
Yeah.
So, and Kate, tell me what's happening with you. How is quarantine? How's New York? What is comedy these days?
Comedy is like I don't know. I mean, it's definitely changed. It's like, I used to do stand-up like every night in person. Now it's like a weird mix of like Zoom shows, like people doing Zoom on stand-up, and then just like making our stuff on the internet, whether like we make our podcast, live streams, that kind of stuff. But I mean, I think outdoor stand-up is starting to kind of emerge, which is, I actually haven't tried it yet. I've done outdoor stand-up in my life, but I haven't done like stand-up in person since March. So I probably will try that soon if it's like enough social distancing outside that it seems safe. But I definitely think that comedy is like one of the going to be one of the last things to come back in real life. Although it is back, like there is comedy in Texas and stuff like that. But, I think it's really like, it doesn't seem like a safe thing at all.
You guys aren't essential workers?
No, and also it's like in comedy clubs, like people are like packed in, there's like laughing, which you like spray the droplets and stuff. And, there's been like a couple comedians that have like gotten COVID and who knows who had it at their shows or whatever. So I don't feel comfortable performing inside at this time. But I hope that the kind of like online comedy world sort of continues to develop. And I'm also like, I'm hoping that outdoor shows are a thing that gets figured out to the point where it feels fun. And like, I'm optimistic that we're going to learn more and more about like safety, enjoying ourselves outside with various things,
Yeah. Yeah, it's really depressing. I've been, I'm kind of, it's not like I'm in denial. I just am I keep saying this, I'm outside of New York City. And so it's like, I'm in a place that's usually different for me. And so I still haven't, I mean, it's getting to me though. I mean, I'm so spoiled. When I say it's getting to me, I mean, I have an amazingly lucky setup, but it's like, I can no longer be in denial about what's happening. It no longer feels different to me. It no longer feels only slightly different.
Yeah, I mean, in a weird way, like I feel like in New York things have, obviously this is like a huge generalization, but I feel like have kind of returned to like a quarter of normal. Like for example, like I think that, like in March, I was like April, just like strictly quarantining, didn't see anyone except for Jake, and then eventually we got some cats.
Became a lesbian household.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, it actually was a lesbian relationship. We dated for 3 weeks, immediately moved in together, and then adopted 2 cats. So it was the full U-Haul situation.
Right.
And but now it's like I don't know. I had a couple friends over to hang out on my stoop the other day, and we wore masks and stood 6 feet apart and all that. But it's like we can kind of see some people outside, which is, I think, like a thing that, seems a lot safer in light of the fact that there wasn't a spike after the protests. If you're outside and you're like standing a little further apart from each other. So I don't know. It's definitely nice to have some form of human contact. And I feel like my friends who are out of town, it's like, I don't know what it's like other places, but New York, you can really feel the trajectory of it being momentarily a little more normal than it was before.
How do you feel that? Like just the socializing, or? Yeah,
just literally just seeing someone besides Jake, and like just even going for a walk with a friend or something. Yeah, because it just, I don't know. I think everyone had different levels of like quarantining that they were doing, but I really like didn't see anyone. I wanted to do it like 100%. And yeah, I was really starting to get to me, the isolation. I'm a very extroverted person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so are you public with your, obviously you are public with your relationship?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really want to, like, at first I was like, I'm dating another comedian, I don't know, like, if people are going to judge me for this or whatever, but then when the world started ending, I was like, people have other stuff on their minds.
Right.
No one cares about our relationship. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you want to, can you share? I mean, you don't have to, but like whatever you're comfortable sharing. I don't know if have you talked about this on your podcast, or have you tweeted about it, or?
No, I don't think so. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm happy to talk about it. I just I don't know, Jake and I kind of became friends over, like a year-long period. And then we were canvassing for Bernie Sanders in New Hampshire a lot together. And then, we're very enthusiastic about Bernie Sanders. And then when we got home, I think realized that we wanted to try dating each other, slowly, but then everything was just dramatically accelerated by the end of the world, Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess what's no, I mean, this is awkward. Because I realized that we didn't talk about this before.
No, that's fine.
People know, I mean, can I explain who he?
Yeah, sure.
So this is, you can private message me, by the way, if there's anything you want to tell me in private chat. If you're like, stop asking me about this.
That's all right. I think it's fine.
So
I'm a comedian, so
right.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to open up your piece, which was really amazing. So this is the piece that I mentioned that Kate wrote. Okay. Which was really, really, really moving. And I actually interviewed you about this earlier when you pre-COVID, when you published this piece at Elle. And so do you want to set it up, or I can set it up? About?
Yeah, I mean, so I talk in this piece about a man named Raghav that was my boyfriend in most of 2018, and we were really in love. And he passed away at a bit more than a year ago, at this time, like a year and a half ago. And he I felt like, from looking at the situation, that it was very preventable, if he had the healthcare that he needed, which he could not get because he did not have insurance. So this piece is really about like my own personal experience with realizing that, we really, really need Medicare for all. And yeah, I mean, it's just, I think like part of the reason that like you're kind of asking me to like explain this stuff together is because like in this piece, like I kind of started it with like an argument that I got in with Jake, who was just like a guy that I knew and was also friends with Raghav. And yeah, it is kind of a strange thing, when someone dies, when you're like dating after someone that you love passes away is like a really, really weird, strange thing. And it's like very strange to date someone who doesn't understand this like huge part of your life,
right.
And I felt very strongly about like kind of only wanting to date people that like I was friends with, because I had just been through so much. And, I just like needed to, like hang out with people who felt like, very like safe and like
right.
they could be understanding. I definitely did not ever think that I would end up dating Jake, especially not at the time that I wrote that piece. But, there's something about canvassing for Bernie Sanders and just the way that that level of hope that we felt in February before all this kind of like brings people together, you know? I felt weird about it, but like in, you know, it kind of in light of everything that's happened with the coronavirus in the past few months, it's been so nice to like have a relationship with someone that also I had, you know, a previous friendship with, because it's, you know, it's like tough, just everything happening. And it seems like it would be a lot harder to go through that with someone that, you know, I met on like Tinder. I don't know, you know, not to knock online relationships.
No,
I've
yeah.
had those too, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really like a moving piece, and the ending is like really, can I share the ending?
Yeah, sure.
It's really moving. And so, yeah, the piece is about your journey, becoming a Bernie bro, basically like embracing the righteous indignation and anger of Sanders. And do you want to read it, or I can read it? The ending.
You can do it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Contrary to Bernie bro narratives, and Raghav is the boyfriend that Kate writes this piece about. Contrary to the Bernie bro narrative, the growing progressive movement in this country is multiracial, includes all genders, and is full of people who care deeply about creating a better world for everyone, including future generations. Anyone telling you otherwise is likely not on your side. I even kind of like when Sanders yells now, because he's yelling for me, he's yelling for Raghav.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about that earlier today of like, you know, the way that the political landscape feels like it's like shifted to me in the past few months. Whereas like, I think a lot of people who I knew in my life who were like super anti-Bernie and just like sort of thought that everyone who liked him was, you know, just like, you know, pie in the sky, you know, or worse, right? But now I think a lot of people are really like just people who haven't seen the need for Medicare for all are like, oh yeah, all these people got laid off from their jobs in the medical, in the middle of a pandemic. Like, what are people going to do about medical care and stuff? And so, you know, you just see like more people kind of coming around to the idea. But I think like, you know, maybe, you know, in January, February, to people who didn't really feel that same level of anxiety about, you know, their own circumstance or the circumstance of people they knew, were like, why is this guy so angry? You know, like, it's just like, you know, Pete is so much nicer or something like that. But now I think that this, you know, in light of the protests and in light of the pandemic, I think that there's so many people who just understand the level of anger that, you know, so many people have been feeling for a long time.
Yeah, I know. It's like, it's so weird, because as much as people would say like there was a cult of personality, and obviously there wasn't that for most people. It was his policies, but he did have such an endearing like affect, and his anger was like, so I guess it's still there. But I realized like I really, really miss just seeing him around as like a potential nominee. Like, he's still around, but it's like, and I'm not ashamed of that. Leaders are charismatic, and I'd rather have I always say he has the anti-charisma.
Yeah.
Right. But they're charismatic, and like we should have a charismatic person who's for the good instead of for the bad. You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, it's like bumming me out, because whenever we see Bernie in the public eye, it's usually like, you know, trying to get people to support Biden. Like, yeah, we know, like, obviously Trump is like, you know, Trump is so bad. And I've definitely, like, I definitely feel at this point, like, yeah, probably no one in the world could be worse than Trump is right now. Like, especially just, you know, just how bad everything has gotten with the coronavirus, and, you know, just the violence towards the protesters. So, you know, it will be great in one way to like wake up and not have Trump be the president, but it is so depressing also at the same time to, you know, be in the middle of a pandemic and have a president that, you know, that is saying that he will not support Medicare for all under any circumstances. It's a bummer. And
have a presidential nominee.
No, I'm talking about like in a world where he wins.
Got it. Right. Yeah. It's we gotta, it's like a reminder we do have to create, I guess, multiple. I mean, he's a once, you know, even people who even my lefty friends who are critical of him are like, yeah, he's a once in a lifetime candidate. He is, like, he is. Just his policies aside, you know, his power to tell stories.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely I definitely think that sometimes, and but then there's other times that I'm like, well, I mean, it's not like the circumstances are getting better in this country. There probably will be other leftist candidates that run, I hope, even though even though I am skeptical that that the Democratic establishment would not find a way to cheat or whatever. But it's possible that there could be another person, running with Bernie's policies that, has a lot of integrity and, maybe is a little bit more media savvy in like a, millennial Zoomer way. I don't know. So we'll see, Yeah. But, yeah.
He also has the great advantage of really not wanting to run. Like Roseanne DeMoro says, leaders, what she said? Not hero. Maybe heroes don't run, they're cornered. And, as he said, when he was debating that terrible person named Elizabeth Warren.
Oh, yeah.
Now I can just own how much I detest her. I really do. Sorry. She's more disappointing than Biden in lots of ways.
She's made me very, very mad in the
very
past
angry.
while.
Yeah. We should form a group called Feminists Mad at Warren.
Yeah.
FMW. Yeah, I like it. But he stood back. He was waiting to see how the draft Warren campaign turned out. He wasn't going to run if she was going to run. She didn't run, and he starts at 3%. I mean, it's unbelievable. And he wanted. I don't think he had any. I don't think he predicted at all he'd do as well as he did. He'd be a viable candidate.
Didn't he announce the first time on his lunch break or something?
Yeah. It was on his lawn or something. Yeah. It was on a grass. Yeah, it was from I don't know. I don't even know. I can't even think of something small enough to make the joke. But it was some corner, maybe, I don't know, street corner in Washington, D.C., or maybe Vermont. I don't remember. But do you ever think what Raghav would, it's a weird philosophical thing because the person is not alive. Right. And, I don't know if you believe in any afterlife, but do you ever think that he'd be moved and comforted by your being with his close friend?
I don't know because I really don't believe in an afterlife, right. I think that I really wish I did, but yeah. I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. But I do think that one thing that is challenging after someone that you love dies is kind of going through a process where you have to, you have to realize in some way at some point it is okay to be happy about other stuff, right. Sometimes and that's it's really, I don't know, it's hard to do, but I mean, I know that I know that Raghav really cared about me, and I think that it was important to him that I be happy and safe in general. So right. I don't know, I guess that's what I think about it in terms of that stuff. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. There's just no way of knowing because it's if the circumstances were not this, it would be, such a completely different thing. It would never have happened. And I went through so much change that year too. Right. And,
Yeah. Do you ever feel did you ever feel guilty?
No, definitely.
Should, but
no, I felt really, I felt super guilty. And it was very much okay, we're, let's not tell anyone about this ever, unless it, we're it's in 6 months and we're super serious. Right. But then coronavirus ended and I'm okay, no, look, this is, we're going through this collective upheaval and we all just have to, support each other and right. figure out how we're going to survive this moment. So then I didn't care anymore,
Were there any unpleasant interactions?
Not really.
Judgmental responses or anything?
No, not really. I mean, the thing is Jake really likes to beef with people online, which is I beefed with them online. I understand what it's like to beef with people online, but I think that one thing I was worried about is with Jake, I was okay, I'm not getting involved in any of your online beefs. I like some of the people you beef with. Right. This is totally this is your own thing.
This is yours. Yeah.
Yeah, this is yours. Yeah.
It's so funny. He's so nice. Like,
yeah,
you wouldn't,
no, he's such a he's really, Jake is a really, really sweet, kind person, but he you know, like he if he, you know, it's, I think it's hard for him to see someone be wrong on the internet. Sometimes he has to say something about that, and I can be like that too, you know, which is like, but you know, yeah, I mean, it's funny because I think about like the kind of like advice that people give, like women, like, you know, especially like if you're like single at a certain point, they're like, don't worry about it, you're just gonna meet someone doing what you love. And it's like, well, I met someone fighting on the internet, so I guess that's true.
And then you got closer to, you know, doing what you love, like canvassing for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's everything in life right now, just, you know, it's like, I feel like we're at this moment collectively where we all realize that life is, you know, impermanent and fragile. And, you know, like, I think I was really feeling like that last year, but now I think, you know, many of us are feeling like that with COVID-19. And, you know, it just kind of puts things in perspective of like, you know, what do I want to do? Like, what is like meaningful to me? What relationships are meaningful to me, you know?
Yeah. And do you have any advice on dealing with loss and mourning? Because so many people are dealing with that either like literally or figuratively. I mean, it's different, but isolation and loneliness. Yeah. Do you have were there any things that you did to help you get through this?
Yeah. You know, like, I think one thing that really, really helped me was like being connected to people, which I know is like extra challenging right now. I mean, I think about like, I'm so grateful that I got to be with people almost every day last year, you know, and I just cannot imagine going through a loss in quarantine. So, you know, if there's just like any way to connect with people that you hear about, whether it's outside, you know, with masks on, or you know, like just talking on the phone a lot. I just think it's like really, really a priority to be connected to other people. And I feel like, you know, sometimes when you're like, and when I say you're, I mean like anyone, like when you're in the mode of isolation, you know, it can be like sort of like hard to get in the swing of connecting again. But I think that that's just like such an important thing for, you know, if you're going through grief, to just really feel that love and support and let people into it, you know?
Yeah. Any books or like anything?
Yeah. So there's this book that I've always been a fan of since like 2010 when my brother passed away. And it's called When Things Fall Apart. And it's by this Buddhist nun named Pema Chodron.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a, you know, it's a book about Buddhism, and it's also just kind of, you know, an existential book about like making peace with the kind of fundamental impermanence of life. Right. And I've been thinking about that book a lot because like everything that I was really like, everything that was like really important to my routine and my identity, like doing stand-up every night and traveling all the time, and, you know, like just, you know, seeing certain friends, like it's just, you know, everything just gets wiped out so fast, you know, like in this moment. And I've just been thinking about that book a lot because, you know, we just like need stuff to, I don't know, sort of like tell us like how do you live when like everything goes away, you know? And there's not like an easy answer. There's like a process like internally of like making peace with, you know, the fact that like actually nothing is permanent, you know? Right.
Yeah. I'm just getting a link for that. I actually started reading that. You know what I have to do is like, I always do this where it's like in times of crisis, I'm like, okay, I'm going to read this. I'm going to work on this. I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to work on these skills, that skills, those skills. And then when I feel like I'm in a good place, I like neglect it.
Yeah.
But no, that's like not the, you know, it should be not, ideally it's like a practice and something you maintain and not like, it's like, I don't know.
No, I understand. I mean, but I think everyone does that. And I think that maybe that's like, I don't want to say that it's like a silver lining of pain, because like being like in a painful time sucks. And like, there's no silver lining, like, fuck that, you know, there's nothing good about it. But on the other side of it, like there is like a lot of growth, and there's like a lot of growth when you're going through it. And I think that like sort of like, I don't know, like not to be like too, I've taken mushrooms like a billion times, but there is something in just like opening up to it and like, surrendering to like, okay, I'm not going to be the same person that I was before this happened. Like I am changing. I'm letting go of this and that piece of my identity. That there can be, in my experience, like moments of, I don't know, like moments where it actually feels like really good to grow and to change in that way,
Yeah. Yeah, maybe there needs to be like a leftist, like compassion live stream or something. Cause I feel like communists and like materialists, like we don't like to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
But, so this is your recommendation. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like cause I've been thinking about that too, like the idea of like, like all of the kind of advice at the beginning of like the quarantine, was like all sort of about like, okay, like here's how like you can get through it individually, versus like demanding, collective action, like UBI, and like, which is what we need. Right. But
right.
That also like, it's really important to work for, societal changes, but that doesn't mean that you have to like neglect your own mental health. Yeah. And I think it's hard to fight, for what you believe in, especially when it's when it can seem so unlikely sometimes, like in the middle of all this shit. But the better, like the more you're taking care of yourself. I don't mean in this way of like skincare, but I mean like, right. Like you're just like you're taking care of your your own mental health and physical health. Like it helps you continue to have energy for the things that are bigger than yourself in your life, I think.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like even if you don't think you deserve it or you don't think it's a priority, like you actually have to do that if you want to be an effective, productive activist or organizer or whatever, however one sees oneself. Like there's real burnout.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and it's like it takes, I think that I mean, right now just everything feels like so bad a lot of the time. I think, I was thinking about how it felt in February when it was like, holy shit, like maybe Bernie Sanders is going to be the president, right? But like now we almost have to actively generate hope, like not hope in the sense that like, it's like for sure going to get better, but enough to like keep taking the actions that could potentially make the changes that we want to see. And it takes something to do that. It takes some kind of emotional resource that it can be really hard to find if you're super, super burned out and depleted yourself,
right.
And it's fine to take a break. I think also too, like, I don't want to like shame anyone for dealing with just their own survival right now, because that is, I think where, so many folks are, and, it's okay. Like, I think it's okay to go in and out of that too. This is a really tough time.
Yeah. Another book I recommend is Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach. I don't know if you know it, but she actually makes the point that like even if you're an activist, and radical acceptance is like you just accept what's happening.
Yeah.
But it's not in a way that's like you accept it. How do I explain it? Next time we chat, I'll have the quote pulled up. But it's like what does she say? Like you have to be not okay with things, but it's like if you want to be effective, like you have to like sit with what's happening and not be like, I don't know. I can't even explain it. And it's certainly not meant to like shame people who are upset or anything. But I remember thinking it was really helpful when I read that part of it. But that's another example. I don't think I finished it because it's like I was upset about something and then I read it and then I got over whatever it was. And then I'm like, okay, I'm done with that, which is why I need you guys to hold me accountable.
Yeah, I mean, I what I'm kind of like extrapolating from what you're saying is it's like, it's not the kind of acceptance where you're like accepting it, like, okay, this is how it is. This is, you know, how it's always going to be, and that's fine. Like, it's not that kind of acceptance, but it's like accepting, like, okay, this is what it is right now. And, you know, then you work with like, you know, you work for the change that you want to see from there. And that, you know, like, if anything, you're not like pretending or telling yourself stories about the world that aren't true, you know, like, I don't know. Yeah. Like a lot of people who are like, oh, okay, well, you know, like, the Queen of Shade has got it from here. So, you know what I mean? Like you actually don't need to pretend that things are better than they are if you can accept the current reality.
I found it. Ready? Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
This quote. Radical acceptance does not make us passive. A friend of mine who is an environmental activist recently told me that if she accepted the degradation of our environment, she would no longer be an active agent for change. An abused woman I saw in therapy told me if she accepted the way her husband was treating her, she would lose her capacity to take care of herself. Students often challenge me, wouldn't radical acceptance mean accepting Hitler's mass extermination of people or simply allowing racism, war, and famine to exist in the world? Does radical acceptance mean we don't respond to suffering in the world? When we feel outrage at human atrocities or despair over the degradation of our environment, we are powerfully and rightfully moved to do something about them. When we see how our own behavior or that of others causes suffering, we are naturally compelled to initiate change. Throughout our lives, these strong responses guide us to pursue spiritual practices and healing therapies, to choose political affiliations, to decide whom we spend time with, what projects to undertake, and how to raise our children. Yet there is a difference between actions and decisions that arise from radical acceptance and those that reflexively spring from our grasping after certain outcomes and our fear of certain consequences. Radical acceptance acknowledges our own experience in this moment as the first step in wise action. Before acting or reacting, we allow ourselves to feel and accept our grief for how the earth has been polluted, our anger about the destruction of wildlife, our shame about how we've been mistreated, our fear about what others may think about us, our guilt about our own insensitivity. No matter what the situation, our immediate personal experience is the fundamental domain of radical acceptance. This is where we cultivate the genuine wakefulness and kindness that underlie effective action. Some of the most revered social activists in the world base their work in radical acceptance. Gandhi in India, Aung San Suu Kyi in Burma, she's problematic, but whatever. Nelson Mandela in Africa all underwent the suffering of imprisonment and faced the powerlessness, loneliness, and discomfort of their oppression. With clear comprehension, they saw the potential suffering of angry reactivity and remained mindful of their intention to benefit others. By accepting rather than denying or reacting to their own suffering, they freed themselves to work without bitterness or self-pity for peace and justice. These and many others model the power of radical acceptance at the heart of our effort to alleviate suffering. I'm probably going to get a lot of people who like unsubscribe to my show now, but and I don't agree with all of that. And I think anger is a good motive, but I don't know, somewhat helpful, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because it's like, I think like I'm just trying to kind of think about like this in terms of like sort of like, you know, concretely like what it means for, you know, like my own life. And it's like, I might be, you know, taking the same, you know, actions no matter what, protesting the same amount, you know, like, but, you know, like, does that mean that like you can't, you know, enjoy like a good phone call with your mom? Like, can you find, I don't know, like, I mean, maybe it's not exactly the same thing, but, you know, like, is like, can you, like, you don't have to be like super upset in every moment to like still take actions that make a difference, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're on Tara Brach's, you're on the same page.
I wouldn't say that I know.
Kate Willett has endorsed, is blurbing Tara Brach's book. I'm just kidding. She's not at all. Not at all.
Well, I haven't read the book, so I don't know, but that's kind of what I took away from it, you know?
Right. Yeah, from my reading, like one quote. Yeah. Mike, thank you, Lee Levin, super chatted. Michael Brooks speaks about the need to take care of self emotionally. He has had someone on his show that is a consultant on the subject. Tell me who he is or she is. Sounds interesting. I got to get Johan Hari back on.
Oh, yeah, I listened to that episode and it was really good of Useful Idiots. I love that. Yeah.
The Katie Halper show is a really good one too. where we
Oh,
talk
nice.
more about neoliberalism and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So let me just, so you guys want to, this is really cool. I got to say, I didn't know this was going to, I didn't plan on focusing on this, but then once we started talking, you know, I radically accepted the direction.
Yeah. I mean, to me, every once in a while, I'm in a conversation with someone and I'm like, wow, I have taken a lot of psychedelics in my life, you know?
Did you get feed out or something, or
what?
How so?
No, just because just going, I'm kind of just joking about just you get into these sort of philosophical places about how to exist, but I like those conversations. Yeah.
I gotta get Gabor Mate on. Oh yeah, thank you, Andy P, for wishing me a happy birthday. It was yesterday, but I appreciate it. Of course, appreciate it now.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. So you guys, you want to play this? Should we watch this interview that I did with Melba Pearson, who's running for Congress? Who's running to be state's attorney. Are you guys ready for this? Kate, you ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can Mystery Science Theater it.
Okay, cool.
Let me know if you guys can hear it. Hold on one second. This is unlisted, guys, so you get a sneak peek. Share screen, Chrome tab, share audio, Melba 1. Okay, you can see it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just tell me if you can hear it.
In Miami.
You hear that?
Really excited to have you
Could you hear it?
Yeah.
on because your race is really exciting and you're running against you don't have to co-sign this, but I would say kind of particularly egregious opponent who has a very troubling record. She herself, as well as her sons, which is relevant, I'd argue. We can get into that shortly, but please tell us why you're running and what made you run.
Yeah, so hey everyone, my name is Melba Pearson. I'm running to be the next state attorney for Miami-Dade County, Florida. And thank you, Katie, for having me on. And I'm really looking forward to our chat. So, a little bit about me. I was prosecutor for 16 years in that same office. So I know what works well, I know what doesn't. And then I became the deputy director for the ACLU of Florida. So I really got that 30,000 foot view looking at criminal justice throughout the state. And again, looking at things that we can be doing differently and better. So, over the course of my work and being president of the National Black Prosecutors Association, I got to see how some really great forward-thinking programs are being applied throughout the country. And it's not happening here in Miami-Dade County. And unfortunately, my opponent in her 27 years has never filed charges against a police officer for an on-duty killing. So for me, there were so many missed opportunities for justice, and it's really time for a new direction in Miami-Dade County, and really someone who's going to be bold and fearless to make sure that justice is real and accessible for everyone, no matter how much money you have in your bank account or from where you're from.
And where were you? Did you have an aha moment? Were you like, oh, wow, this woman is not prosecuting prison guards, and we'll get into this, for boiling a man to death. I maybe should challenge her. What was the thought process like?
Yeah, so how it all came about is that first, I had been very involved in the aftermath of the Darren Rainey case. So once that I was already at the ACLU of Florida, right, and that memo actually got released while I was there, and the ACLU was one of the top critics of what was going on and why this case wasn't filed. So, in reviewing that case, and I was seeing the missed opportunities, that bothered me. Then there was, right after that, the Jesus Menacall case, who was a police sergeant in a city here called Hialeah, and he was sexually assaulting women and girls. And, my old office chose not to believe the one victim of the 5 that they spoke to, and never moved forward in bringing accountability for his actions. So that bothered me. And then when we had the discussion around bail reform, because we really looked at the data here in Miami-Dade County, and there were really stark racial inequalities that were laid bare by the data, by the numbers. It wasn't an opinion. This was literally numbers in black and white. And my opponent was like, no, nothing to see here.
Right.
other reasons, and we're never going to have bail reform in Miami-Dade County because the voters don't want it.
Right.
I'm like, well, let's find out.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So just to back up a little bit, could you tell us about those cases, the Darren Rainey case and then the Hialeah sexual abuse cases?
Sure. So Darren Rainey was a schizophrenic African-American man who was in custody at the Dade Correctional Institute. It was this prison here in South Florida. He was serving a sentence for cocaine possession, right? So just as a random side note, something that I've seen many times in the criminal justice system is that when you see people with mental illness, many times they use street drugs to self-medicate because they're not getting proper access to medical care and they're not receiving the prescription medications that help deal with the underlying condition. So this is not a
really important point. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was in custody. He had an episode. And there were 4 correctional officers that took him out of his cell and placed him in a shower. Now, this shower is known for its scalding hot temperatures. They were referring to it as a punishment shower. The temperature in there ranges between 160 to 180 degrees. The staff would use that shower to make ramen noodles. Like, it's not even like, oh, we get the water to go boil it. The water was already so hot, they could stick the jar under the stream and their noodles would cook instantly. So this was a well-known issue with the shower. And also being this type of prison shower, if you're inside of it, you do not have access to the controls. So you can't turn the water on or off, you can't adjust the temperature, and you can't adjust the volume of water coming. The guards left him in that shower for 2 hours until he died. Witnesses speak about him screaming and begging to be let out and apologizing, and yet they still left him there until he passed away. The graphic photos that come from the autopsy are something that, once you see them, you can't unsee. It's really horrible. So the medical examiner, after a number of years, because this happened in 2012,
right,
and it was only as a result of the Miami Herald, which is our big newspaper, the Miami Herald, doing an investigative report, really following this case and itemizing what happened and starting to pose the questions of why has there never been any accountability, sometimes somewhat on behalf of the family, that another autopsy, like an autopsy was done, an investigation was really, went into high gear. And the medical examiner said that this was an accident because of the fact that he had medication for schizophrenia in his system, and somehow the heat of the shower could cause him to have a heart. I mean, it was just like, how many different ways can we twist it to make this an accident?
Yeah,
right?
Somehow putting someone in illegally hot temperatures is contraindicated for schizophrenia medication, and but for that, he'd be totally fine, alive and kicking.
Right. Exactly. Contrary to common sense, medicine, and everything else.
Yeah.
So my opponent has been saying, well, because of the medical examiner's report and all of this, we couldn't go forward. And in my review of the case, because, again, do I have the full case file? No, but I had the medical examiner's report. I had the memo that was pretty detailed. I read some of the witness statements, and I was like, we could totally file this case. It wouldn't be like a first degree or second degree murder case, but it would be like a manslaughter, something so that the officers would be held accountable. And there's a clear message being sent to the community that this type of behavior won't be tolerated. But my opponent refused to do so. And, now we have a situation where it's been 8 years and there's been no justice for the Rainey family in the criminal justice system. They did receive a civil settlement of a multi-million-dollar settlement, but at the end of the day, that doesn't bring their loved one back, right? And the guard was still free to go about and do this again to someone else.
Is the reason it wouldn't be, I'm not a lawyer, but is the reason it wouldn't be first or second degree murder, is that because it wouldn't be easily, you wouldn't get a conviction with that? Or is it just technically not that? Because first degree is when you have the intent, right, to kill?
It's the premeditation.
Premeditated. Okay, and second degree is?
Heat of passion or so incredibly reckless.
Engage in activity where it's a likely outcome or possibility. Criminal law class in undergrad. Still remember it, kind of.
Right.
I used to always think I'd go to law school. I still kind of consider it, but right, yeah. We have a good friend, actually, family friend, who went to law school, I think, in her 40s or 50s, and like represented Leonard Peltier. Not that that turned out so well, but it's not on her. You know, you have an
Right,
entire
right.
you know, institutional bias against him. So because this seems like you put someone in a shower, you hear them screaming, apologizing, begging to be let out, saying, I can't take no more. That seems reckless.
I agree, but here's the problem, and this is why I would file manslaughter. The medical examiner's report said that the death was accidental/natural causes.
Right.
So with that finding, you know, usually when you have a murder case, they say the manner of death is homicide. They put that in the medical examiner's report. So it's a really kind of an uphill battle to be able to prove murder when the medical examiner says accident. So you take that ruling of accident, which is what a manslaughter is. It's an accidental death.
And then you could actually succeed in
exactly
that. Look at my inner Matlock.
Right? There you go.
Or the reverse because of defense. Yeah. So yeah, that case is so incredibly disturbing, and it starts. I mean, it starts like you mentioned, and I didn't even think about this part, but the self-medicating because you're mentally ill. We are kind of famously in the United States bad at this issue. We're bad at funding mental health, bad at funding healthcare in general, very punitive. We use the criminal justice system for things that it should not be used for, like treating mental health. He had a terrible incident. It's involving, not to be graphic, but involving, I guess, smearing feces on the wall and on himself. And that's probably an example of why, first of all, he should not have been in prison, because that's not, that's a very clear indication of mental illness. And of course, you want to put the person clean the person up. But again, the putting that person in scalding water, that's totally unjustifiable. They also had a reputation, these prison guards, correctional officers, for using that, as you said, to punish other people. They would do something called air trays, where they would give people trays without food on it. Apparently, they bribed one prisoner to attack another prisoner. And there were, one of the prisoners who had to clean up the shower afterwards said that he found like a chunk of flesh. It was just so incredibly brutal. And it's interesting that Fernandez-Rundle didn't even feel the pressure. Forget the moral issue. I mean, I have no faith there, but there's such blatant lack of accountability that not just for these officers, but for her, that she didn't even feel the pressure to kind of do a tap on, tap on the wrist, with,
a slap on the wrist.
Thank you. Yeah. A slap on the wrist.
So that's just one part of the interview, but I thought, it's kind of an incredible story, right?
Yeah, I'm just shaking my head because it seems so important that Melba win this race and that her opponent is out of office ASAP. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, it really is. And I didn't put these in, but there are all these photos of it. It's so graphic, and you see his body, and it's just and the dishonesty with which the case was covered up. It's just absolutely disgusting. I hate these cases are always so incredibly disturbing, and then just hearing people's last words or close to last words are just I don't get I do, it's systemic, that's the whole point, but I just can't, I don't understand how people can hear that stuff and not turn off the wall.
Yeah, the level of the level of sadism, not even individually, but institutionally. Right. So it's mind blowing.
Yeah. And they also, and I think, and I have to look into this more, but I think a prisoner was punished for speaking out about it. It's just so scary, and it's just so obvious why prisons have to be, for the system to work, why they have to be so inaccessible and hidden. Because if we saw the horrors that happened there, it would be,
Yeah, I definitely want to believe that, but it's how many videos have we seen of police violence and murder at this point? And you still have half the country you know, totally willing to tolerate, you know, the status quo or, you know, some slight, you know, like that with like a, you know, a couple more laws that already exist in the places where this is still happening. So I don't know. I mean, I think that there definitely is something, people are, I think, you know, somewhat inured to it, you know, at best,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, I think it's different seeing like after I mean, well, some of them have been live streamed, which is like, I mean, but I think that, I mean, like literally having them, I guess I don't know what I'm talking about because people see homeless people all the time and tolerate that. But yeah, I mean, I think the systemic degradation, but of course, how would you see that? Like you have they do have some outdoors prisons, which is, well, Gaza is one. And then, you know, Joe Arpaio has his outdoor setup.
Yeah.
But yeah, should we watch more of the interview?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Where is it? Actually, it's still processing, so we can do that in a couple minutes. But yeah, had you heard about this race before?
I hadn't heard about this race yet.
Have you heard about the Darren Rainey story?
Yes, I had heard about that story a few years ago, but
yeah.
I wasn't aware of this campaign. I'm so glad you sent this to me earlier today in preparation for the show. I was like, oh, this is really important that this person wins.
Yeah, yeah. We got to get some coverage of her. I mean, it's so important.
Yeah, we should have her on Reply Guys.
Yeah, have her on Reply Guys. Great.
Yeah.
I really want to have her. I'm placing that on she's going to be on my podcast this week and also on WBI, but there should be, I mean, hello, the appeal, anyone there? That's maybe not the most encouraging, converting way to encourage people to cover her. But yeah, I'll just harass them until they cover her. I'll berate them and you know, shame them publicly. That's always a good look. But yeah, I mean, Elle, maybe you could interview her for Elle. There should be some interviews. Yeah, she needs to be getting high profile attention. And that evil monster does too.
Yes.
Like, can you imagine like the hubris required to just make these ridiculous claims?
I don't know, because it's like, I just, you know, so many of these people are just like, it feels so difficult to relate to, because it's like, how can you, you know, how can you hear something like that? How can you, you know, stand by? I mean, it's just like, you know, in addition to this story, there's just like so many other terrible, terrible stories of torture in prisons and in, you know, ICE detention facilities,
right.
You know, and it's like, there's so many people that are just, you know, participating in that. And if not, you know, co-signing it. And I don't know. I mean, I just, you know, that's where it gets really psychological about why people tolerate this or not. But I think it's just really important to, you know, for us to focus on like getting these people out of office,
right.
Abolishing these institutions. Yeah, because I don't know what makes people act like that.
Yeah. Here's the rest of some more of the interview. Okay, let me know if you can. Okay. Oh, is it playing? No, it's not playing. Sorry. 1 second. 1 second. Sorry about that. I'll start from again.
At first, but Julie Brown, who was
let's start from again. Sorry.
Yeah, were people surprised, or was that kind of expected, given that she hadn't even pursued the case, and only did after there was a high-profile journalistic investigation?
So, I mean, I don't think a lot of people paid that much attention at first, because again, it came out Friday afternoon, 4 p.m., nothing to see here. Right. So there wasn't a ton of media attention at first. But Julie Brown, who was the journalist from the Miami Herald who did the series, picked up on it, and then it started to snowball. And so then what ended up happening in 2017, the Miami-Dade Democratic Party basically called her to the carpet and brought her into a general body meeting and basically confronted her on it. And as a result, they passed a resolution of no confidence against her and asked her to resign. She, of course, refused, but that has now resurfaced in the course of my race, where now they passed another resolution earlier this week saying, number one, we asked you to step down in 2017. You did not do so. In the 3 years since, you have still yet to charge a police officer for an on-duty killing. And at the end of the day, we have a moral obligation to, talk about these issues and promote justice for all. And we believe Black Lives Matter. So as such, we're asking you to abandon your re-election campaign, step out of the race, and basically cease and desist everything that you're doing. So in function, they stripped the D in front of her name.
Right. And she was a Democrat. She is a Democrat.
Yes.
Okay. It's another sign of how far the Democrats have fallen. I mean, the fact that this person is not a Republican, not to be too partisan about it, and my expectations are certainly not high, but wow. So you have a man who's mentally ill, thrown into jail.
3 years.
3 years for cocaine.
Yeah.
For just possession?
Just possession.
Oh my God. Okay. So,
and just for context, the maximum is 5 years. So
wow.
That's a long sentence.
Yes. 3 years in jail. Just imagine that, for having cocaine. Mentally ill. Shouldn't be there in the first place. He's and then murdered by prison inmates, or manslaughtered by prison guards. And then on the other hand, now of course marijuana is a less serious drug, right? And the punishment for that is lower. But on the other hand, you have one of Fernandez Rundle's two Falson sons boarding a plane with his mother and aunt, I believe, with marijuana on him, and he's not even. They let him on the plane, and then someone kicks him off the plane. But he was going to be, after this was found on him, he was still let on the plane by some officials before I guess they realized maybe that was bad optics. And what happened? And then I don't remember if it's that son or the other one, ne'er-do-well, who broke into his school, tried to steal a car, was in a DUI. How have their lives fared? How have they encountered the criminal justice system?
So I am not overly familiar with what the outcome was. Right. As a general premise, I don't know if a lot of people are, but my understanding is that they did some sort of diversion or some sort of program, and kind of moved on with life and are working, and
Right. So they got to have like a pre-trial diversion program. So interestingly enough, when it comes to Fernandez Rundle's son, she embraces, or I guess supports or benefits from, or her sons do, kind of more restorative justice, pretrial diversion, less punitive criminal justice system. But if you are Black, mentally ill, and have cocaine, you're just thrown into the slammer for 3 years, and also have the privilege of being burned to death. So this is like, we always hear about two justice systems, and A Tale of Two Cities, and it's powerful people often benefit from that. They have the good system, which is basically they're like exempt from the system, and other people are have the full force of it applied to them. But this is kind of a stark example. Like, it's not always the state attorney's own sons who are given this second level of justice. Yeah, that's just so. I mean, can you imagine the double standard? It's not shocking. It's just shocking that it's not usually that stark of a concept.
Right. I mean, and at the end of the day, the ACLU did a study looking at the data between 2010 and 2015 in Miami-Dade County, and they found that every single level of the criminal justice system, Black Miamians have close to 3 times worse outcomes than their white counterparts, and Black Hispanics have almost up to 6 times worse outcomes to their white counterparts. So the tale of two justice systems is alive and well in Miami-Dade County, and that's part of the reason why I'm running, because that has to change. That's not okay.
And can you talk about, on a related note, the Hialeah case?
Sure. So the in the Hialeah case, there was a police sergeant by the name of Jesus Menacol Jr. He was a police sergeant, and he was tasked with a number of, I believe he was on SWAT. You know, he was on a lot of different assignments with the department. And during his time, he was sexually assaulting women and girls. And if you actually looked and examined every single detail of all of the five stories, they all pretty much have the same modus operandi, right? He pulls them over in the same way. He takes them to a certain part in the police department where there's no camera. He generally assaults them in the same way. And basically, you have a situation where a couple of the people assaulted were underage girls. And they reported this, you know, obviously, and they were very traumatized. And of the five survivors, only one of them was interviewed by the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office. And this is the office that prides itself on being at the forefront of human trafficking and believing survivors and all of this. Well, when the one young woman came in to give her story, the prosecutor that spoke to her decided that she was a bipolar, manic depressive, runaway gang member, and therefore not worthy of being believed. And she never bothered to speak to the other four survivors, because if she did, it would have been clear that, listen, even if you may have doubts about the first one, you know, I didn't speak to her, so I don't know, but let's say even if you have doubts, once you hear the stories of everyone else and they're all exactly the same, you could have filed all of them as one single document, right? As one single case. Or you file one case and then bring in these other details to help bolster that one case, right? But she chose not to do that. And by not believing her and by talking about how she exhibited, you know, these certain behaviors, well, some of those behaviors are very consistent with human trafficking survivors. Sometimes they come off as tough. You know, people have this misconception that if you're a survivor of sexual assault, you're curled up in the corner, you're weeping, you're
Right.
you know, the way you react is just very like a shrunken violet. And sometimes, you know, you've got an angry, tough exterior because that's your coping mechanism,
Sure, right.
And there's plenty of studies to support that. So how can you say you're at the forefront of human trafficking when you don't even recognize the signs? And when somebody who is coming to you with the textbook symptoms of being victimized, you don't even know how to recognize it. And on the worst part of it all, you don't even do a thorough investigation.
Right.
All five of those women were completely let down by the system. And the U.S. Attorney's Office, the feds, got involved and actually have filed civil rights charges against him. So there is some potential of justice for these survivors, but this was a complete missed opportunity by the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office to do the right thing and to help these survivors.
So, right.
So anyway, so I'll play the rest of the interview. I'll put it on, you know, the YouTube channel, the full interview. But yeah, and she's reform minded. We talk about that more in the interview also. But yeah, it's really kind of incredible.
When is her race?
August 18th.
Okay, so there's still sounds
Yeah.
like some time if people want to volunteer.
Yeah,
Make phone calls.
Yeah. And I put the link to her website, but again, it is melbaformiami.com. God, yeah. Imagine that other person is terrible. Her son should just face whatever punishment they would face if they were not her sons.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
I love that they get pre-trial diversion programs. You know, like I'm sure she'd advocate like some like spiritual, you know, restorative justice alternative. They did do that. I mean, they did pre-trial diversion. But yeah, it's incredible. And someone actually asked, you know, we have a surprise visitor tonight. So Ross Barkan is joining us, but
Nice.
so is ready? Someone that you interviewed, Kate. And the first
cool.
time I heard about her was on your show, Jen Perelman.
Amazing.
Yeah, who is also Floridian and running. She's challenging Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
I love Jen.
Yeah, she's great. And so they're coming on at like 9:30.
Amazing.
But, yeah, Kate, anything else? If people have questions for Kate, or Kate, you want to talk about anything?
No, I guess, check out my podcast, Reply Guys. We have been also having a lot of really great candidates on, just trying to keep track of races around the country where leftists are running. So please check it out. We also do episodes about other stuff too. Like we did an episode about sex work and harm reduction for drugs. And we try to, have discussions of all things relevant to leftism and feminism. So yeah, check that out. I'm trying to think.
You interviewed Markey, right?
Yeah, we interviewed Ed Markey, which was really fun. He was so sweet to us. It was really funny. And his super Massachusetts accent, he was like, I love the Reply Guys. I don't know why I made him sound like Bernie Sanders. I'm not good at that. But
I was like, I'm trying to find the Massachusetts in there.
Yeah,
what is that? Like Ca?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess they're like the standard theater game exercises, like park the car at Harvard Yard or whatever. Right. But I don't know. He was so cute, and he told us about how he got his start in politics as an ice cream man. As a teen, he was selling ice cream in a park, and the cops came and said it wasn't allowed. And a young boy was very heartbroken because he wanted ice cream. So Ed sold it to him anyways, and then was arrested for selling the ice cream. And then he realized that they needed to change that law. So he went to the city council meeting and got all these people to support changing the law that you couldn't sell that ice cream there for some reason. So they did. And he's really sweet. And, it's definitely Joe Kennedy just sucks so much. So yeah.
When's that race?
Let me look it up. It's coming really soon.
We should have him on. Follow me.
Okay. He's
follow me back. Yeah.
He's so sweet. I'm looking up when this race is.
There's been requests for you to have more time. Hey, you can stay on as long as we're going. But she can. I'm talking to my viewers who are craving Kate Willett.
Oh, that's so sweet. I can't find this easily, but
I'll find it.
It's coming up very soon. Yes. Check out Reply Guys. I also am doing periodic Zoom comedy shows. Just did an abortion
on
fundraiser.
With a Zoom abortion.
No, I was gonna say an abortion organization fundraiser that provides assistance to people who need transportation because there's no abortion clinics near them. Right. Western Pennsylvania for choice. Periodically do Zoom stand-up stuff. So yeah, follow me on Twitter. I have a comedy special on Netflix if you want more stuff to watch in the quarantine. But yeah. And I love Katie. Help her, just two Catherines chatting.
Yeah, I know. Catherine, Catherine on Catherine action. Yeah.
I remember. Okay, so the first time I met you, I will tell my first introduction to you story. I met you because you came to my birthday party with Jake a little bit more than a year ago, and you were talking about Catherine the Great and how I don't know if this is true or not, but died having sex with a horse. Is that true?
They say that. Yeah.
And that was also one of the first conversations that I ever had with Jake. And I just thought that the topic was, I was like, wow, what a wild
ride.
Yes.
What a wild ride. Yeah.
Literally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So gross.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But you knew Jake, you had been fighting online before then?
Yeah, just a little bit. I had not met him in real life before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That was the first time you met him in real life?
Maybe the second or third time. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. Wow. I thought you had. Yeah.
We know each other now. We
spent
100-something days in a row together.
It's a lesbian romance.
We're in a lesbian relationship. Yes. I feel like this is, well, I can't really see this happening on your show, but just in case anybody is like, oh my gosh, this is so problematic. I have been in multiple lesbian relationships.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So
I
watch
don't
it,
know.
guys.
I decided that it's okay for me to make that joke or something, but yeah, maybe it's not. No intention to make fun of.
I mean, look, yeah. I think it's okay. Well, I can't speak because I don't lesbian identify, but I can get some like full-time lesbians, some gold star lesbians to approve of that. Gold star is a lesbian who's never been with a man, by the way, right?
Full-time lesbians. I'm just, you know what? I'm glad that some people are still employed right now because it's hard for a lot of us.
Right. Yeah. Well, you said you have been in, I mean, like, always go lesbian or go home.
Yes, exactly. People, yeah.
By the way, someone rude said Katie wants to be center of attention at parties. No, I told that story because I was sharing how I used to, as a kid, I made up a story. I pretended that I had been named after Catherine the Great, which is very weird because she was a tyrant. Also, not great for the Jews, as is many a Russian leader. And apparently did have sex with a horse. I don't know if it's true, but that's what they say. Oh, and Kelly, by the way, Kelly is here. Kelly's back, and she just informed me. She just informed me that her first name is actually Catherine.
Oh, my mom's name is actually Kelly. So there's just like a lot. There's just a lot of. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah.
My mom's name is Kellyanne, which I thought was fine until Kellyanne Conway became the most famous Kellyanne.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Do you have a middle name?
Anne. Yeah.
Oh, Catherine Ann. Okay, got it.
Yeah, Catherine Ann, but my mom's name is like Kellyanne. Like that's her entire name.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. I have. I'm Catherine Rose. Have I shared this? It's a very Irish sounding name for Jews. Catherine Rose.
Yeah, Catherine Rose is very Irish.
Right?
Like just like I had to throw a Margaret in there, and
I know
you're all set.
And then what's really weird is that my mom is Nora Jean, and my dad is James Paul.
That all just sounds very waspy, but very, very waspy names.
Waspy or aren't they Catholic? James Paul, isn't that many a pope? Hasn't many a pope been named that?
Yeah, actually, I guess so too. I mean, both. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, yeah. But not Jewish. Waspy or Catholic, but not Jewish. Yeah. That's one thing it's not. My dad was named after a black jazz pianist named James P. Johnson.
Oh, nice.
My mom was named after Nora from A Doll's House.
Oh, wow. That's because Nora from A Doll's House has a tragic fate, right?
I mean, no, not like tragic like that. It's like not like Awakening's tragic, but like leaving the home tragic.
Oh, okay.
No, yeah, feminist. Yeah,
I couldn't get
the family unit. Yeah. In fact, when I taught history, we'd read a lot of literature as primary source, and we read the end of that play, the Ibsen play, A Doll's House, and she leaves, and I was like, oh, and that's what my mom was named after, and people are like, really? No. Anyway, yeah. Any last minute, any more questions for Kate? If not, she'll go play with her boyfriend and cats.
Well, I'm gonna do some Zoom comedy later tonight.
That's great.
What I'm doing. I'm gonna tell jokes into this computer.
Do you play a laugh track or something?
No, there's like people that unmute on Zoom.
But don't you want to hear laughter?
No, you can. Yeah, like it's
but
weird.
I would play a laugh track because I bet people don't laugh as much over it, right? Like so much of laughter is being in person.
I mean, it's definitely different, but I feel like I've adjusted to it. Like people laugh still. I don't know. You're right. Like it's, you have like 10 people unmuted, which is definitely very different than like a full room. And you're sitting down usually. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes your cats come and climb on you. It's weird. Yeah.
Wow. Well, okay. Thank you so much.
I'll see you later, Katie. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming.
I'll talk to you later. Bye.
That was great. I'm about to bring on our next guest. Are you ready, next guest? Can you hear me, next guest? You can hear me. Okay. Do you have headphones by any chance? Hold on. I'll just add you in. Hello? Yeah. Hi, you're live.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey. Oh, you don't need your headphones for some reason.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Great. Awesome. Ross Barkan, welcome.
Thank you for having me. We're
Yeah.
excited to be here.
Yeah, I've been wanting to have you on for a while. It's hard to keep up with you. Like literally, you just wrote another piece. I see.
Yeah,
about
for
Tucker
my
Carlson.
newsletter.
Yeah, for your newsletter. Yeah. So, oh, and we have Jen Perelman too. So let's see. How about this? I'm gonna talk to you, Ross.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna bring in Jen in like 10 minutes, and the three of us will talk.
Okay, sounds great.
That's good. Okay. So, Jen, I don't know if you heard that. If not, let me just text Jen. You guys, don't you love how you get to look behind the curtain? It's so cool. So, what should we talk about? Do you want to talk about your late? And when I say that, I'm not being my usual scatterbrained. What should we talk about? Although that led to a great conversation, by the way, with Kate Willett. We had a nice mental health conversation that was not expected. But because you have a piece in The Guardian, you have a piece about Tucker Carlson, you have a piece about Cuomo. Do you have what do you want to talk about? Because I think our listeners would be interested in all of them. Yeah.
Well, the Tucker, so it's interesting. So I for those who don't know, I write a column for The Guardian. I also contribute to The Nation. And in May, I started a Substack because that's what a lot of people are doing now. And I've been enjoying it because it's a way to actually be compensated for all the work you do for free, which is basically tweeting. And, I'm a Twitter person and I like Twitter, but you're a lot of times I would have thoughts, but they're not really thoughts that necessarily could make it into a regular paid journalism piece that I do. But I wanted to expand on and also, I wanted to have a medium that I thought did a fair job of compensating writers. So I recommend Substack for those.
But not medium. I thought you were saying you wanted to have a medium, but you're saying
just the word medium, not medium as in the platform.
Right.
Nothing against medium.
Yeah. No.
I used it a little bit, but I find Substack much more intuitive. So basically I started a Substack in May to focus on Andrew Cuomo and his failures to respond effectively to the coronavirus pandemic, which is something of a controversial take.
Yeah.
To talk about that.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, and then we can talk about Bernie.
Yeah. All right, we can do that.
Two ends of Bernie. And then you also have a piece about how colleges are still charging full tuition despite going being on virtual, which people can find at The Guardian. But let's talk about we could talk about the Tucker thing too, but maybe let's start with Cuomo.
So I've in my capacity as a journalist, from New York City, I have written about Andrew Cuomo since I want to say 2012 now, so about 8 years, so since his first term. And I followed him pretty closely. I've written a lot about New York City politics and state politics, and he just to give a primer, he very much has been a fiscally conservative, socially liberal governor. That's probably the easiest way to describe him, though at times he has pivoted to the left, usually when it's convenient for him or if he's experiencing some type of pressure from left-leaning forces in New York State. So I won't, I have political issues with Cuomo, but I'll focus mostly on coronavirus. And back in March, I started, writing about COVID, like everyone else, as it was ravaging New York City. And one of my great frustrations at the time, and still a frustration, was how Andrew Cuomo would get constantly praised for his response to coronavirus, which is still the case. And I argued at the time, and I still argue. I also argue in the Substack, as you can see, which is called the Cuomo Files, and it was started originally to hold Andrew Cuomo accountable. It's still doing that, but then I also pivot to other topics as well, like Bernie Sanders and Tucker Carlson. So,
which Cuomo piece should we open, by the way?
It's a good question. I would say you can go to. You can go from the why does the media, welcome to the Cuomo Files, kind of the overview. Why does the media take the onus off Cuomo? Was one that I enjoyed writing because it was a good encapsulation of the ways the media really let Cuomo off the hook. So just to give a quick recap. Why do I criticize Cuomo, who has been valorized in all sorts of media, from the New York Times to, prestige national magazines, you name a media outlet, Cuomo has gotten praise from it. Why has he been praised, and why do I think he's failed? Well, we start with the fact that, New York State lost a phenomenal amount of life. I think we still, even now with coronavirus killing a lot of people across the country, we don't really, I don't think, reckon enough with how many people died who did not have to die. 32,000 people statewide. It's a staggering number. New York City, well over 20,000. And it was pretty apparent by the beginning of March that coronavirus was spreading in New York City, New York State. If you'd read about it, if you'd followed, how the virus interacts, the trajectory of it, it was very clear this is going to be a major problem. And instead of addressing it, both Bill de Blasio and Andrew Cuomo repeatedly downplayed the threat. You can go back and look at clips from early March interviews where Cuomo was talking about how he still wanted to shake people's hands. He was saying things like the fear is the greatest thing that you have to fear about this, kind of like FDR,
Right. Except
but
FDR was not talking about disease.
Let's not overreact.
Right.
And then he was very slow, actually, despite his reputation, to shut down the city. And that's really what it comes down to. In California, Gavin Newsom and London Breed, the mayor of San Francisco, really coordinated together to do a relatively early shutdown. Even Bill de Blasio on March 17th was saying it's time to shut down New York City. We need a shelter-in-place order. Cuomo dismissed it wholesale, mostly because Bill de Blasio had suggested it.
Right,
Cuomo,
they're so annoying. Their little rivalry.
yes. And Cuomo also was late to order a statewide shutdown of schools. The states of Ohio and Michigan actually were quicker to do this than Andrew Cuomo. So he was late on a shutdown order. We didn't get the statewide shutdown order until March 22nd. By then, the virus had spread rapidly throughout the city and the state as well, and people were getting sick and dying. So he was slow on that front in his initial reaction to contain the spread. He was very bad at coordinating with New York City, coordinating hospitals, the public hospitals, the private hospitals. Some hospitals were horribly overrun with cases. Others were not. You had an issue of hospital capacity in certain neighborhoods. Ironically, in part, that's because Andrew Cuomo has supported defunding hospitals, cutting Medicaid funding, especially to poor hospitals. You had a situation where actually the city and state were quite disorganized, and there was a lot of needless suffering and death. And we've done a good job of bending and flattening the curve. I do give Andrew Cuomo credit there, but people are still dead. And then you look at the nursing homes, which are also a catastrophe. At least 6,000 people are dead and died in New York State nursing homes. I say at least because we do not know the true number. The way nursing home deaths are counted in New York is if you get sick and infected in a nursing home, but you die in a hospital, it is a hospital death and not a nursing home death.
Oh, wow.
You can imagine
Right.
someone gets sick in a nursing home, they are then transported logically to a hospital. And so in this calculus, those deaths don't even count. So you just 6,000 people who got sick and died in nursing homes literally died there. You have many more people who died in hospitals. And that count is very unclear. There's been a very much publicized, directive that Cuomo really admitted was a failed policy and repealed back in May, which was nursing homes had to accept and readmit COVID positive patients. And this isn't the only reason that many people died in nursing homes, but it certainly is a contributing factor. Cuomo also gave nursing homes and hospitals legal immunity in the state budget, which is very important to keep in mind. I'm doing a piece on for the Nation right now in nursing homes. I'm speaking with families of those who suffered. It's very, very sad. And they cannot bring a COVID-related lawsuit against the nursing home for malpractice. They are forbidden by law. Nursing homes.
We had on David Sirota to talk about that.
Yeah, no, Sorota's been very, very good on that.
It's so gross. And that's because his donors are people who run these nursing homes?
Yeah, the nursing home industry is very powerful in New York State. So is the hospital industry as well. Cuomo works very closely with the power brokers in the healthcare sector. He has for a long time. And you had individual nursing homes too who are begging for PPE. Please give us, we don't have enough. And the state failed to give them enough PPE. And that was another major issue. And there were just also, I go on and on about this, logistical issues, Cuomo purchasing and trying to get as many ventilators as he could while ignoring cries for PPE. And PPE was relatively affordable and available compared to ventilators, but he chose to focus on ventilators rather than those preventative measures. So, while you can give the state credit for flattening the curve, you can't ignore the staggering amount of death. And then finally, the economic reaction to coronavirus in New York is also very concerning because Andrew Cuomo has proposed deep cuts to state aid that he is currently basically following through on. He has not detailed them yet, but City University of New York, the State University of New York, a lot of public institutions are cutting back rapidly, laying people off under the assumption that the state is not going to give them any money. Now, tax revenue has plummeted in New York State as it has elsewhere. And the question is, what do you do, right? You can raise taxes on wealthy people. This has been done many times before. After 9/11, we raised money on wealthy people, on property owners. Did it during the Great Recession after 2008. Cuomo right now is refusing to back any sort of tax on millionaires and billionaires, which is a big, big issue. And he's also refusing to borrow money. The Federal Reserve has virtually interest-free loans that they are offering to municipalities. Cuomo has been reluctant to raise taxes or borrow. So what do you do? If you're not going to raise taxes, you're not going to borrow. Donald Trump is not coming through the generous federal aid package, at least not yet. You cut. And so Cuomo has always been very driven by this austerity mindset. Right. If he hasn't always successfully implemented it on every level, it's always been kind of a grand aim of his. And for those who live in New York now, that is the deep concern. You're going to see devastating cuts to public schools, to public transportation, to hospitals, to social services, to the very safety net that we all rely on. And it's deeply distressing. And I've written a fair amount about it in my newsletter for The Nation and elsewhere. So that's kind of the over.
I've had on Ava Farkas, who's the executive director of Met Council on Housing. Also, I've known her since I was 5. Good friend. And she was talking about how Cuomo, he makes it seem like he has, like his hands are tied, but he doesn't have, just like that he said, he can't expand the budget beyond like 2% or something. It's this random number.
The property tax.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, right.
You will not. Yes, he imposes a cap on how much you can raise property taxes, and that's how most local governments fund everything outside of New York City, especially. So. Yeah, it ties the hands of public education in particular. It's a big issue.
And then, and he's a fiscal conservative. He's an austerity governor. But the other thing is, like, as most people know, that's always been basically a myth. You can performatively be socially, and I guess with LGBTQ stuff, it's different. Well, anyway, but
he's been good on that.
Yeah,
he's been coaching on that for 9 years now. And
I am, I'm Black, I'm a Jew, I'm a gay. You remember that video that he did?
I remember that very well.
That was really moving. You can only do fiscal conservatism and austerity so much before you're actually implementing racist policies, just because of how.
Absolutely. I mean, housing's a great example. I'm sure Ava talked a lot about that. New York for decades now has been losing a lot, hundreds of thousands of rent stabilized apartments, and it was only in 2019 that a law was repealed that you couldn't make a rent stabilized apartment a market rate apartment. So just I guess to back up for those who don't know, New York City, most apartments are market rate, like condos, regular, rentals. They can charge whatever they want, whatever the market bears. But we do have, which is kind of a remnant of our post-World War II social safety net, which has been steadily eroded, this program of rent-stabilized housing. And a fair amount of people, I've lived in rent-stabilized housing, a fair amount of people do. Rent-stabilized housing doesn't mean that you still don't pay pretty high rent. What it means is the landlord is limited every year in how much they can raise your rent. And that is set by a rent guidelines board. So usually it's 1 or 2% a year. You have a right to renewal. You have all these little protections built in that the market rate renter does not get. And in the 1990s, a law was passed in Albany and in the city council as well that created a way for landlords to raise rents to a certain level so they can then deregulate rent-stabilized housing and make it market rate. The threshold was, it changed over the years, $2,000-something. You would hit that rent, it would go market rate. Landlords had a variety of tricks they could pull, doing capital improvement, harassing tenants to either get them to move. If they left the apartment, if it went vacant, you could take it market rate, or you could raise the rent enough. So landlords had a lot of ways to make sure these rent stabilized apartments became expensive market rate apartments. And so this bad 1990s law was only repealed when Democrats took control of the state Senate, no thanks to Andrew Cuomo, in 2018, then took office in 2019 and repealed this. And so Cuomo had almost a decade as governor where he did nothing to protect the rent stabilized apartment stock. He did nothing to strengthen rent laws in New York State. So if you are a tenant, a renter, a working class person in New York City or New York State, you quite frankly should have a lot of problems with Andrew Cuomo. If you're a wealthy person, maybe not. Or, maybe you're a wealthy person who cares about those who aren't as well off as you. But from a housing standpoint, and really from a standpoint of the social safety net and the public sector, Cuomo has been either a real roadblock to progress, or someone who's not doing enough to further the cause. And it kind of depends on the year and his mood.
Right. Well, and I guess he gets a lot of credit because I feel like Trump has lowered the bar so much that because he talks about, experimenting with bleach to treat COVID, that Cuomo just looks incredibly calm, collected, rational, coherent, science-based. And yeah.
That's
a lot of,
I look forward to the day Donald Trump is out of office for the most obvious reasons, that he's a terrible president, but also because I think it will free the left from the Trump derangement syndrome, which is anything that is opposite of Trump is good, right? So I experienced this yesterday and today on Twitter with Amazon. I was tweeting my hatred for Amazon and actually calling for boycotting their products. Obviously, hard to do the web services. They're a massive monopoly. Totally understand if you cannot literally boycott everything Amazon has its tendrils in. But you can certainly find ways to boycott at least part of it. So a lot of people on the left were defending Amazon to me, and it's kind of striking. And I couldn't help but think if Donald Trump hadn't spent so much time attacking Jeff Bezos, that liberals wouldn't feel a little sympathy for him. If Donald Trump was pro Amazon, you would have the left running to the barricades against Amazon, like they would, like they have rightfully so with Black Lives Matter. You probably see a big mass movement against Amazon, but you don't in part, I think, because it's a popular service, but also there's this kind of idea of, Trump is horrible, so therefore everything opposite is good, and that's not true.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid because bad people will do the right thing even if for wrong reasons. TPP, I always bring this up. TPP, You know, there are lots of examples, but this is actually a great transition for our guest who we're going to bring in. And but Ross, don't go anywhere because these are very related stories. But Jen Perlman, who is running, who is challenging Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and one of the things that Jen has spoken about when I interviewed her was about how much the Dems like Pelosi and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, how much they gain from having Trump in office because they don't have to do anything and they just get all their donors just, you know.
Don't have to govern.
They don't have to govern. They don't have to actually resist in any meaningful way. So with that intro, let's bring onto the show Jen Perlman. Hi, Jen.
Hi. Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
So Jen, what do you have anything you want to say about the things that we were just talking about the, you know, MIC resistance and how that relates to your campaign?
Yeah, I think that it perfectly relates to any campaign of any progressive that wants to come in that's not beholden to the party. And I think that's a huge part of it. You know, it isn't just beholden to corporations, it's beholden to the party. And this party, which no longer represents labor. So we essentially have one party. We have one corporate party. So any Democrat that doesn't go in line with corporate agenda is essentially ghosted and an outcast and sort of treated as a pariah. And that's just the way it is. And I do think they like Trump. And I do think that this keeps everybody exactly where they are and they don't have to do anything. So I do think that.
Yeah. And what about how is your race going right now? And what's the latest in that?
Yeah, so I just found out today, interestingly, that if you were to type in jenperlman.com or jenperlmanforcongress.com, they directly go to Debbie.
Wait, don't say yet. Let's do it right now.
Okay, you want to see what it is?
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to open up a new web page. Okay. And then
you have to just type in jenperlman.com.
Okay. So we're going to share screen. Chrome tab, new tab. Okay. So, all right. So what do I put in?
Jen Perlman, JenPerelm.
Oh, JEN.
Yeah.
PERAL.
PERELMAN.
.com.
.com.
Okay, ready? Let's see what happens. Oh, you guys see that?
Huh. Wow.
Okay.
And it also happens for if you do Jen Perlman for Congress.
Okay,
it does it for both.
All right, I'm just tweeting this out because I want people to. Sorry, I was misspell your name.
And I want to be clear that I'm not like naive about the fact that we're rookies. We didn't buy up every single domain name. I get it. They bought the domain names. That's really funny. But the fact that it goes to her congressional page, that's not a campaign page. That's her congressional page. It just seems very unethical to me. And I'm sure it's legal. I'm sure it's like just this side of legal, but it's just not. It's kind of pathetic, really.
Yeah. I mean, and then, right. And this can't be like, could they say a hacker did it or something?
Who would do that for her?
Right.
I mean, if she were a really popular legislator and people really loved her and she was like beloved, maybe somebody would go out of their way to do it for her. But if you trace the company that bought the domain name, it goes to some front business in Panama.
Oh, interesting. Well, she's huge in Panama. But couldn't they also denounce? Wouldn't they say if they're responsible, they'd be like, sorry, this is not our doing?
Well, we'll wait and see. I mean, the only reason we even found out about it, I mean, they obviously bought the domain names back in September. But I don't know when she linked it to her congressional page. I don't know how old it is. I don't. Right. The only reason we found it is we were looking to purchase other domain names for possibly going forward. And we just, and one of our people came across this.
Wow.
So there could be others. I just know those two. Yeah.
You got to buy them up. That's really crazy. Yeah. So
yeah.
that'll
and
be
again, I don't begrudge them doing that. I would probably buy up the domain names too. I mean, that's definitely, it's slimy, but I get it. But the fact that it links to her official congressional page, it just doesn't sit right to me. And it wouldn't if it were any legislator, quite honestly.
Yeah. So I don't know, Ross, if you've looked into Debbie Wasserman Schultz at all, but she seems to be kind of a perfect example of what we were talking about in terms of a MIC resistance person. She doesn't get the Cuomo treatment, right? I mean, I think Cuomo was kind of uniquely exalted.
No, Debbie's pretty universally disliked, with the exception of a small group of like sycophants in the district that either are friends with her personally or they're concerned with their political careers.
Right.
Yeah, she's not like beloved.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And Ross, what about this is something that I'm sure will have major thoughts on, Jen, but do you want to talk about the Bernie Sanders piece that you wrote, where you kind of do why he lost?
Sure. So, the Bernie.
Hold on 1 second. Sorry. And Phil Winter goes, I'm still stuck on the redirect. I know it's a pretty big deal. So that's why we're breaking it here, right? Is this breaking
Yes, you
here?
are. I posted it on my Facebook, but you are the first person that I texted when that happened.
There you go. Yeah. And I took a little video of it so people can see. But so anyway, so coming full circle from people we don't like to people we like, Bernie Sanders. Yeah. Sure.
So I've maintained, and I said this in 2016 after Hillary was defeated, and I think the same is true, if a candidate you like a lot loses, that the left should really think about, why didn't Bernie Sanders do better? And I think there are a lot of reasons for that, and some of them I outline in the piece. First, back up. I've argued a lot that Bernie Sanders has been the most influential losing presidential candidate maybe in American history, certainly in modern political history. He has reshaped the policy debate in so many ways. He overnight created a socialist movement in America through the DSA, over 60,000 members. It's very remarkable. They're very influential in New York City and elsewhere. So he is someone who's absolutely made a tremendous difference. Part of the aim of the aim of the 2020 campaign, unlike maybe the 2016 campaign, was to win. I don't know if Bernie believed from the outset of 2016 he was going to defeat Hillary Clinton. I've read a lot of different things. He was kind of running this protest insurgency, and it got very big, and they kind of were playing catch up. And there was a lot of excitement going into 2020. What could Bernie do with a second campaign, especially with a fractured, weaker Democratic establishment? And I do think there were many successes from 2020, winning California, energizing young people again, energizing people under 40, Latinos. But he did not win. And in some ways, he took a step back from 2016. And so the question is why? I think, losing older voters was the big issue why. And for better or for worse, older people vote. And Black and white older voters alike over the age of 60 despised and rejected Bernie Sanders wholesale. Unfortunately, that cohort was outvoting the under 40 people. And I also think this is an issue with media, and I think about this a lot as someone who writes both a lot of journalism and commentary, but also media criticism. How does the so-called mainstream media treat leftist candidates, and how did it treat Bernie Sanders? And certainly much of prestige media was hostile to Bernie throughout the campaign, MSNBC in particular, cable TV. And so I argued in my piece that certainly someone of Bernie's stature, though perhaps was doomed to not get a fair shake from the mainstream media, could have done a better job at the outset of courting or mitigating some of the things that ended up happening. This is a controversial opinion. I've had many people on the left tell me, no, it's impossible. They are pro-capitalist. They will hate the socialists every time. As someone who's worked in media and actually run for office myself a couple of years ago, I don't quite share the same nihilism towards the media. I actually think mostly they are human beings in search of access and a good story. And many of them are culturally liberal, if not socialist themselves. Usually they are not. So the gist of my argument was that Bernie Sanders going into 2020, and this was also an argument for the next major presidential left candidate,
Right.
has to really think about, what is my strategy for MSNBC? What is my strategy for the New York Times? We know they're hostile. We all agree. The New York Times editorial endorsement process was absurd. They co-endorsed 2 candidates who did not win a single state or come anywhere close to winning a state, Klobuchar and Warren. So we know that, we get that, right? And we can sit here all day and talk about the ways prestige media has failed the American left. But the American left has to go out and win. Especially, it's been winning on the congressional level. We saw Jamal Bowman with Mondaire Jones. But it has to win on the presidential level eventually, we hope. So my piece was kind of trying to chart a way forward, like, okay, who, for the next standard bearer of the left, for someone who takes on the Bernie Sanders message, who takes on his followers, what can they do differently? How can they start to mitigate, work with, overcome media hostility?
Right. Yeah. And what are the ways? I mean, that's funny because on Youthful Idiots, Matt Taibbi and I kind of disagree on this a little bit, although I kind of see his, I don't know if I disagree. I think it's my inclination in a way to be like, oh, he never had a chance. And because of the media. And I actually think kind of both of those things can be true. You can say maybe he had never had a chance, but he still needed to do certain things and could have come closer, or maybe it could have made the decisive difference. So what are the things that you...
I myself have been a longtime critic of access journalism.
Right.
I've written about it in the Columbia Journalism Review. I've criticized it in columns on social media. I think it's terrible. I think it's a stain on journalism. I don't practice access journalism myself. That being said, if I'm a candidate for office who has some level of clout and prestige, I want to exploit the hell out of access journalism to get the stories I want. Bernie Sanders was not in that position in 2015 and 2016. He was the weird fringe outsider that no one wanted to write about until finally they had to write about.
Right.
2020, yes, there were points, and I when he was blacked out or ignored by mainstream media, but he also did get a lot of coverage. We can't say he was utterly.
But it was often negative. I mean,
yes,
the New York Times and the Washington Post was
sure. So my argument is that you can soften negative coverage through access journalism. I've seen this happen all the time. I use the example of Pete Buttigieg. A lot of people dislike his politics. I get it. I'm not here to make here in this argument. I'm not judging his politics. What I'm saying is Pete Buttigieg was a nobody from Indiana who became a top flight candidate. Some of that was because the media likes centrist politics. Some of that was he has talent and charisma. A lot of that was this kind of inside media strategy that Liz Smith, who I personally dislike her politics since the Cuomo days, in New York State, I've disagreed with her a lot. She's very good at what she does. And a relentless access journalism approach by a well-known prestige candidate like Bernie Sanders, I do believe could have paid some dividends. Could it have done everything? No. I would not say hiring a Liz Smith person is going to make you the president of the United States. No one does that. But were there ways at the outset that the Sanders campaign could have courted behind the scenes, CNN, MSNBC, met with network executives, been relentlessly courting national political reporters? Again, this is not everything. This is not how the only way you win. It could have softened the edges of what was a very hostile environment. And I do believe that the left has to think about that in the future for candidates who have the clout to do it.
Right.
Outsiders, much harder to do. Bernie Sanders was a famous politician with millions and millions of followers. He was no longer that outsider. In one sense.
I think also in terms of local media, like especially, I mean, I don't know what effect that has. Maybe that's, but, or not even local media, but media that's not MSNBC. I guess more local, like, why they could have made more inroads. And I also think that maybe it's like, maybe they were afraid to undermine their media critical narrative, but and that was so built into his identity from 2016, where he couldn't really change that. But I think they didn't like. I think it's so weird for me to ever criticize Bernie, but I do think that they also weren't very good at courting endorsers or surrogates.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And Warren was not a good candidate in many ways, but she was good at that.
Yeah.
And if
Larry
you took
Krasner, for
yeah,
instance.
exactly.
Why Warren over Bernie? Bernie helped Larry Krasner. Come on.
Right. But
Yeah.
she probably made the phone call. Even people bring up Jim Clyburn a lot, and Bernie had won Nevada and was maybe in a position to power play Jim Clyburn into endorsement. He didn't. Or Jim Clyburn said he never called me. I mean, who knows? But Bernie has never liked the inside game. We get it.
Right.
No one likes the inside game. But the next prominent left candidate who runs for president needs to do more inside game than Bernie did. How much more is an open question.
Right.
And I use the example of someone like, AOC, who, is not, she is the same left as Bernie, but she's not. My sense is she's kind of pivoting more out from the socialist left to kind of like, I'm trying to use the right term, cultural liberalism. I don't know. I think she's still very good. She has been much better at getting positive coverage out of prestige mainstream media.
Yeah, totally.
That's inarguable. Bernie could not get it in the same way.
Yeah.
Some of that is who they are.
Yeah.
But some of that is the approach too. I mean, even I agree with you, like local independent outlets. I don't know if Bernie didn't like sit for just that many interviews. I remember when I was at The Guardian trying to do a column, I actually wanted to try to get Bernie for a story. He did a very good column, I thought, on the media and kind of
I remember
his
that,
plan for helping the media. I thought it was very good. And I wanted to speak with him. Just couldn't come together. And it's stuff like that where candidates are super busy. I know, super, super busy. It's also, you can take 5 minutes to make a phone call.
Yeah.
You will make the day of anyone.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I don't know if in Iowa and in those places he was doing that. I don't know.
And it's weird for me to say this because I critique the media so much, and there are all these structural things, but there also are personal things. And I know this from being someone who's somewhat in the media and who's like, it's harder for me to be critical about someone who I've had a personal experience with, who
totally.
so I think it could have softened it. But what about Jen? How have you experienced this as an outsider? And Ross, maybe you have some advice for Jen as she takes on Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Any media pointers? But what has your experience been like, Jen?
Well, we have been completely ghosted locally. We get zero local, zero. And we've sent out press releases. We've invited them to the launch. We've we do that, but there's no, it's kind of, there's no point in pursuing local media. I have done some radio. I have gotten on like some radio shows, and even a more conservative radio talk show I went on. But really anything else, they're scared of her. So we don't get that. I mean, we've been ghosted by the Dem clubs and by local media. So I don't, and it's, to me, it's just a microcosm of what you're talking about. We're dealing with the same thing here. And yet I've spent the past year going around behind the scenes, around the back, talking to people, trying to, yeah, and it's the same with us with unions. We get the same thing. We're ghosted by the unions. Yeah. So it's really, it is just such this cronyism that just really keeps it the way it is. And we are chiseling away at it. So I don't want to be sort of fatalistic because, it is hard. And, for every, 10 losses, maybe you get a Jamal Bowman in there, and that's what that's really what we're trying to do, is just chip away at it. But I really blame Bill Clinton for this nightmare. And, this is something that could have been avoided. And now we have completely corporatized media.
What do you mean by Bill Clinton? Why do you blame Bill Clinton?
Because of the 96 Telecommunications Act. And once that happened, is now we're the end result of 90% of the media is owned by 6 companies or whatever for-profit companies. And just the mere fact that somebody like Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post, to me, is the most ridiculous appearance of impropriety. And I know, Katie, this, my background is journalism. I went to college for journalism. I started out in journalism. And so I think of things through that lens, and it's just outrageous to me. that we have all this privately corporate owned media charading as news. And it's not anywhere near news. It's a few news points basically in a propaganda format to sell us a nationalistic, mindset. It's just very contrary to what I would consider actual news. And part of it is that the journalists that we see on TV aren't actually journalists. They're talking heads. I remember when the people on TV did their own reporting. Even someone like Dan Rather, these are people that would actually they were actually journalists at some point.
Not Brian Williams. Oh my God.
Right. So, and that was even more in the transitional period when it started getting a lot more corporatized. But once that generation was off the air, that was it. I honestly can't think of somebody on mainstream media that is an actual, what I would consider to be a quality journalist.
Yeah.
It's definitely very hard. I empathize a lot with insurgent candidates running against incumbents who are not famous themselves. So what I described before, Bernie could have done because he was one of the most famous politicians in America. That was the point of my article. He had the leverage and clout to play access journalism. The insurgent outsider does not get that sort of leverage and clout. Part of the problem is how the media covers campaigns. To be perfectly frank, the media will not pay attention to a campaign unless they raise a lot of money. That's the benchmark they almost always use. Who's endorsing, who's raising money? Can you get a Justice Dems or an AOC? Maybe they'll pay attention. That's like a maybe. Usually AOC they'll pay attention. She's kind of like the marker of like
she's not putting her neck out for any of us, really. She's only
she's been a quiet, not a big endorser of
and she's a fellow brand new Congress person, right? Jen's a brand new Congress candidate.
Yeah, she's a slate mate, but she only. I mean, and again, a lot of the when they came out and endorsed Jamal Bowman and Charles Booker, that was 2 weeks prior to their primary.
Right.
Yeah. So my primary is August 18th. So I don't want to be like negative and say it can't happen. Like maybe I'll get a Bernie endorsement. It'd be great.
Right.
But I would just, it's unfortunate that this is the case because right now is when we have absentee ballots have just gone out. So they might want to wait till 2 weeks before, but that's not necessary. We have a lot of old voters. They vote when they get it in the mail. Those old people, they get it. It's done. So that's what we're doing.
Also, why did they wait 2 weeks before to see how well they were doing and to know whether it was worth the political risk?
I don't know. I just know that it was like basically 2 weeks to the day from their primaries that they announced their endorsements. And we are finding a lot of people and organizations are dragging their feet. And we've raised close to $300,000. So we're somewhat viable. I've gotten endorsed
Very good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the only BNC candidate that has been endorsed by both Marianne Williamson and Andrew Yang.
Oh, wow.
So there are certain things that lend itself that I have this sort of crossover appeal to different groups. And yet there are certain organizations that they just will not even. I got rejected as an R Revolution.
Yeah, do you know why?
They gave us some boilerplate letter as to X, Y, and Z, and it needs to be all. But no, they didn't get. It was nothing that you would have been able to look at was personal towards us.
There was a good piece in The Nation recently by a friend of mine who worked on the Charles Booker campaign, and he was writing about why left insurgent campaigns still mostly lose. And I thought he made a very good point, which is these endorsements all come way too late in the campaign. Even Booker, as you said, a few weeks out, the movement organizations came, AOC came. It's cute, but it's no cigar because people have voted already.
Right.
You need to mobilize campaigns months ahead of time. And again, they made the point, even someone like Jessica Cisneros running against Cuellar, her endorsements came a bit late too, though she had a lot of support. So I think that this is just kind of an ongoing issue where politicians, when they get into power, and then social kind of these social justice movement organizations are really more conservative, not conservative politically, but conservative in terms of taking risks. They actually don't like risk taking. And I think on the left, there needs to be a lot more risk taking. You have to go find candidates early in the process when they need the most help and help build them up from the bottom. Find good people, find them when they're at their most vulnerable, when they need fundraising help, when they need help hiring staff,
Right.
when they need help recruiting volunteers and help them explode. The problem is a lot of these groups are just waiting until the campaign has gone viral. I mean,
Right.
even, Jamal Bowman, he'd been building forever. And then finally AOC came in. Great. But those campaigns are hard to pull off. I mean, it's very hard to unseat an incumbent in general. And I do think that the left has to get a lot better at finding candidates earlier in the cycle and pushing them harder from the outset, so they're then not waiting and seeing, oh, is
Right.
this person viable? Are they not
Right.
viable? I mean, you don't know. I mean, having followed the AOC race too, she looked viable, but very few people were expecting Joe
Yeah.
Crowley to actually lose. And then, holy crap, he lost by a lot. So same thing with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She could be driven out. You never know. Just as Charles Booker was dismissed for most of the campaign, and suddenly he had a shot. So
Do you
I
think?
definitely think
Sorry,
left
okay,
has
yeah.
to get better at that, finding people earlier.
I mean, it seems like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? On the one hand, like you don't know whether this person is going to be viable, so you don't get behind them,
Right,
and then they're
and
not
they don't
viable,
become
right?
viable. Yeah.
And it seems like, I mean, I wonder like how close it was. I don't remember how close but it was pretty close. The Booker campaign, right? The Booker race,
Very
the
close, yeah.
Booker, what's it, McGrath race?
Amy
Yeah.
McGrath, yeah.
Yeah. So what? I mean, could these endorsements a couple weeks earlier have had an decisive impact?
My friend who works on the Booker, sorry, I was gonna say my friend on the Booker campaign said yes, they could have, but yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say absolutely. Just the vote by mail alone, that's just a fact. The vote by mail ballots start getting sent in, and if you've already sent your ballot in, all the endorsement in the world isn't going to help. So
Right.
timing absolutely matters.
Yeah.
Yes. In the age of COVID, even more so, but even pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, timing is crucial.
I guess I get that people don't want to hitch their ride to a candidate who's not going to win because they want to, have be, like you were saying, conservative with their political capital and clout. But I mean, the left could also do a better job of not letting that narrative that look what losers the left is because these people didn't win. I mean, if I think the left really does need to do a better job of saying, well, yeah, but look at the obstacles that we overcame to even get close to it. Right. So, yeah, of course, not every the fact that like people are winning at all, given the corporate versus non-corporate difference, I think is pretty astounding. So I think the left has to figure out a way to tweak that narrative so that the like actual victories, the expectation of victory is lower, and the kind of significance of not winning is not as dire, or it doesn't signify this defeat.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Bowman race was remarkable. I mean, Elliot Engel was one of the most senior members of Congress, chair of foreign affairs, going down.
White Hawk down. I call it White Hawk down.
It was awesome.
And then,
it was glorious. It really was glorious. And I love Jamal, so it was really cool. Like, I mean, it was great. Yeah, he's another state mate. So, yeah.
Wow.
And then Mondaire winning in Westchester, in Rockland County, in a crowded field of corporatist, centrist candidates, and really running away with it on a very unapologetically left platform. So it's going to be very fascinating.
Yeah.
Yes. So seeing them in Congress will be fascinating, how they move things and where they go.
Yeah. And then Torres and Samelis Lopez came on the show. Unfortunately, did not win. She was brand new. Was she brand new Congress? She was, right?
No, actually, she was running against a progressive that was a brand new Congress candidate.
Oh, Torres?
No.
It was someone else. It was another candidate.
Oh.
Yeah, Tony Ramos, right? I think.
Yeah. He didn't do great. Most of the left coalesced around Lopez in that race, and Richie, though he's young, he's fairly progressive, was very much the sort of more center left candidate.
Right.
But I will tell you what was interesting.
Really bad on Israel. Wasn't that his first? Was that his first video? Oh my God.
He's a big Israel hawk.
I'll tell you what was interesting was that AOC had gone ahead and endorsed. I'm like losing my train of thought, but there was a point to what I was going to say. Now I'm like totally losing.
You're on the Katie Halper show, so it's
is that what it is?
And digressive, yeah.
Yeah,
it's our jewelry.
No, she endorsed Annalise Lopez, but Annalise is not a BNC candidate, and like as BNC candidates, we're really not supposed to do that. Like you're really not supposed to endorse against a BNC candidate. Right. And I think that just because she's who she is, that nobody cared or said anything, but it kind of bugged me.
Yeah. Where's your BNC solidarity?
Kinda, I mean, yeah.
Lopez was sort of favored locally. She was favored by the left organizations. DSA was very hard.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
They should have. You know what? That was a flawed strategy. Having both of them in that race like that was a flawed strategy.
Because it divided them.
Two totally progressive candidates. Yeah,
right.
You're going to split that vote.
Yeah. And then, so who has covered you, Jen? I mean, what's funny is I heard about Jen. I think you DM'd me, but then I also heard you on Kate Willett's podcast, Reply Guys. Yeah.
I've been on really most alternative media at this point. Jimmy's still ghosting me, but other than that, I've been on, I want to say most things. I'm going on with Mike Figueredo again this week. I was on with David Dole last week. I mean, I've been making those rounds. I have an interview with Cenk a week from tomorrow.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So, I mean, people are paying attention. And what's interesting is win or lose, I will always prioritize giving my attention to all of the alternative media. Yeah. I will talk to you before I will talk to CNN.
Uh-oh. Ross is going to advise you that's a bad move.
I don't care.
I think just talk to everyone. For the record, make time talk.
I will, but you know what? My priorities are the people that have been loyal and have been good to me, and that matters.
I don't think Bernie, maybe you would know much better than me, Katie, but I don't know if Bernie was like greatly accessible to alternative media in the run up to 2020 either. I think he was accessible to no one. So no, I would argue as part of the access journalism strategy, talk to everyone. Even again, that they hated Pete Buttigieg at Liz Smith. I mean, Pete would literally sit with almost anyone who would want to talk. So
if you have a CNN request, take them before me, and I'll accommodate your schedule.
Yeah, I prioritize the people that I consider to be actual journalists. So that's just how I roll.
Yeah. Anything else that you guys want to make sure we talk about? Oh, let me just read this big roll on Mayo. I'm not almost nauseous talking about Bernie's loss. I'll never forgive Obama for helping to clear the field for Biden. The MSM are openly anti-Bern rhetoric of certain Dems who are willing to damage the party to deny his nom. Yeah. That is something so Matt Taibbi and I have debated a few things about Sanders, and he had an article where he spoke to some Sanders current and former, well, obviously now former staffers. This is while he was still in the race. And one of them said something like, Bernie Sanders needs to scale up his organization in a way that's not just like making it bigger. Like once you get bigger, you have to change the structure, or else it's like in The Jerk, where I guess Steve Martin, after getting a lot of money, he just builds a bigger, what does he live in? He lives in what's the word?
It's a big
shack, right? So then he just builds a bigger shack. And they compared it to that. I guess, which was an issue. I don't know. But then, sorry. Yeah. What were you going to say, Ross? I remember.
No, just on the comment that came up. I mean, one way I'll push back.
Which comment? Sorry, which comment?
The one I just read? That you read that you popped up on the screen. The Obama-Biden consolidation. And this is where I diverge a bit from my friends on the left is I think Bernie's strategy should have always been prepared for that moment. I don't think it was realistic to expect a fractured field through May. This idea that they were going, and this is where I do fault the Bernie campaign strategy and the people he hired. You weren't going to claim a nomination with 30% of the vote. The rules are not the same as when Trump ran in the Republican primary in 2016. Trump had winner take all states, that he could win a plurality, but get all the delegates. Bernie never had an opportunity. So this idea that, the fix was in, they consolidated. Sure, for sure, the consolidation killed him. did Obama coordinate it? I would bet close to 100%. Yes, he did coordinate it behind the scenes. That being said, you've got to know years out, Barack Obama is not going to hand you, not going to help you win the Democratic nomination. He's going to be against you.
Well, he's not only going to not help you, he's not going to not use his power. Look what he did with Keith Ellison. He and his people made phone calls behind the scenes, and that's why we had, what's his name? Perez.
Perez, yeah. Right. Exactly. So again, this goes back to, preparation going into the next election. You're Bernie Sanders. You have to know there will be a consolidation. You're not going to be beating Klobuchar, Buttigieg, and Biden out to May. So once the consolidation happened, they were like, "Oh my God, what do we do?"
Yeah.
And that was kind of it. And I was disappointed because I felt like there was no strategy or answer for that moment.
Yeah.
It was just, they consolidated. I guess we hope Warren endorses us, though she probably won't. And then what do we do? And I'm not really convinced that many Warren voters would have folded in for Bernie.
Anyway.
There are more Hillary voters who were searching for someone who's vaguely progressive but did not want to support Bernie. So, he was in a tough spot in arguably, being an insurgent, being a socialist.
Yeah. But he needed to do that. It's funny. I remember we learned about his suspending while we were taping Useful Idiots. And I remember I was like gutted kind of, and I got really mad. In fact, I was like, can you take out some of my cursing and some of my anger in this part? I told the editors because it was just not very becoming. And I got really mad. And one of the things I was mad about, I was like, he needed to look, there were structural things. There was the moderate consolidation, but that debate that he had with Biden, the last one, I really think, because I remember watching him, he's like, come on, Joe, like, you're a good guy. Like, no, like, stop. Go to the YouTubes. Like, I think he was talking to Biden the way I talk to a friend that I'm debating, and I like expect them to make a better argument. Yeah. And I'm almost helping them. I do that a lot. I'll be like, okay, if you want to make that
kill Biden, say this. He could not kill Biden.
But he didn't want. I mean,
he didn't want to.
He would have. That's the thing. I think, who knows? Maybe not decisive. Maybe it's inevitable. But he definitely could have been stronger on him. And that really, then I look back and I was like, I honestly think that was him trying to help Biden prepare for a Trump debate. Like, I think at that point, maybe either he knew he wasn't, and he has a soft spot for Biden, which is which really angers me. That's what I was like cursing about, because I was like, this is fucked up. Like, you need to be disciplined, and you can't let your like soft spot for Biden get in the way of politics. And Matt Taibbi had said this on their show and was kind of like, look, he's taking all these people's money. So he didn't mean that in a grifter way, but he's like, he's taking all these people's money, and he needs to, scale up in a way that's not just building a bigger shack, or else it's irresponsible. And that was the first time I was like, oh yeah, you're right. And I think that it's similar with this. And another thing that Matt and I kind of, I don't know why I'm making this show like behind the scenes, Useful Idiots behind the scenes, but he's someone I talk to obviously about this stuff weekly. And he's other note, major like reporter also, right? Who was on the trail a lot. And one of the people who was able to have access to Bernie, I'm sure because he does so much anti-corporate and anti-corruption reporting. But, I remember I was saying something about the consolidation, how unfair it was. And Matt was like, yeah, but of course, just like, yeah, but of course the media hates Bernie. Because I was kind of saying, and I think it does come down, there are two issues. One is like a diagnostic issue, and one is a prescriptive issue, right? And like, obviously we all agree that the media was totally unfair. The question is like, could something have been done? And I think it's an important question, which is why you raised it in your piece, Ross, because there are going to be more candidates, obviously. And then the other issue is like, because I was kind of stuck in like, oh, I can't believe Obama did that. And then Matt was like, why wouldn't he? It's not illegal.
Obama.
Like, it's not, it's Obama. And it's like, and it's true. We interviewed Nina Turner, and one of the things she said was like, there needed to be a strategy about what would happen after, people drop. Basically she was saying like, we all knew that was going to happen, or it shouldn't have been a surprise.
No, it should not have been a surprise. And every successful presidential primary candidate has successfully eviscerated their rivals. I mean, Obama did it to Hillary in 2008, ran a very negative, TV ads, radio ads, tearing her down, and won.
Yeah.
And Trump teared down his rivals in 2016, defying them early, mocking them. Bernie doesn't have to mock them, but if he truly wanted to claim the nomination over Joe Biden, he had to go about obliterating Joe Biden and then winning and knowing the voters will consolidate against Trump anyway. And my sense was he didn't have that killer instinct. Some on the campaign wanted to push him there. He didn't quite go there. He's a great candidate. He's done many, many great things, but to claim that Democratic nomination in the second campaign, it's no longer about making a point. The first campaign was making the point, building the movement. The second campaign is winning. And he did not win. And so that's where, with my friends on the left, I say, well, let's think about why didn't he win?
Yeah.
What are the lessons you can learn? I truly believe in autopsies and going back, thinking it through. And Democrats, I don't know why, seem to hesitate, both the centrists and then even people on the left. Bernie was done dirty.
Yeah,
and that's it. But it's an American political campaign. We have to think about what actually happened.
Right. I mean, both are so both are true. That to me is both are definitely true.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Someone wants to hear more from you, Jen. Sorry. By the way, I just want people to understand that this was I've had Jen on before and I want to have her on again, but I saw this thing I thought was pretty significant about the website being directed. So that's why. But we can hold the space for Jen, and Ross is being very generous, and Jen is being very generous. Both of you guys with your time. Ross, do you have any questions for Jen? As someone who follows
it's a good question.
Political campaigns.
That's how I know Wasserman Schultz has been primary before. So what's different about your campaign, or what lessons did you take? I think it's Tim Canova, right, who ran against her. What lessons did you take from that campaign? What are you trying to do differently? And how do you think you can be successful where past insurgencies have come up short?
Okay, so Tim actually, and that was in 16, that is really the only time ever that she has been challenged in 16 years. The only time.
Yeah.
And Tim had only moved here 5 years prior to running against her. So he was essentially an outsider. And he came, I believe, within 12 points of her. And that's with her being friends with the supervisor of elections and a lot of nonsense that went on that we know of. I can't even imagine what we don't know of, but things that we know of. So this time around, there's some different variables. One, we have a new supervisor of elections who is not friends with Debbie and isn't even a Democrat. So right there, there's definitely a better appearance of propriety. I'm already feeling better about it. But the other thing is that I'm not an outsider. I was born in this district. I grew up here, and I'm a native Jew to North Miami Beach. And the reality is that unfortunately matters here. I wish it didn't. I wish that wasn't how people voted, but the truth is they do. So Tim was able to bring in progressives and a lot of Greens and a lot of people that were maybe otherwise not participating, but I don't think he was able to pick off any of her people.
Right.
And I think that I think I inherently pick off some of her people. In fact, I know I do, just based on the fact that I've been here my whole life. My dad was born here. So there's just a lot of roots. And she and I are only 1 degree apart. So a lot of her people are my people. So it's kind of, it's in a little bit of an advantage there. And we also have more people paying attention to the election process. I still think they're going to be nonsense. I think we're going to have significantly less polling places open, whether because of COVID or them just blaming COVID. We've been doing our best to encourage vote by mail, but hopefully those don't end up in the trunk of someone's car, because we had that happen in 18. So, it's kind of a crapshoot as far as the process. But I do think candidate wise, and I also think timing wise, 16, that was pre-AOC. That was pre this sort of progressive momentum where people see some sort of light at the end of the tunnel in terms of getting non-corporatists in. So I do think that his campaign was somewhat of a springboard to sort of test the waters down here. Yeah. And I personally think that the fact that he did as well as he did.
Yeah, it got over 40%, which is pretty good.
Yeah, considering that he was an outsider. And, I've been doing this a lot longer than he was prior to his election. So he didn't first go to a Dem club until after he was running. And then he would go meet and right. I was already a member of the Dem clubs. So there's just this more of, I think, of an organic root connection for me to this district that I don't think he ever really had, even though he was brilliant on policy. I mean, he's a smart guy. He would be a very good legislator, and I have no doubt about that. But I don't think he was able to connect as well, especially on an individual level, and especially with the older and the Jewish voters. And I do think that that really matters in this district.
Yeah, no, for sure. Definitely makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, we're hoping. We're hoping. Like what, you know, I mean.
Yeah. I wonder if that,
you never know. That's the truth.
She did a poll, Katie. I know she did a poll a couple weeks ago because a couple of my volunteers got polled, and she was polling about her and me. And this was, I want to say it was 3 weeks ago. And I'm thinking that she didn't get such stellar results, or it would have been leaked and I would have heard something about it.
Oh, yeah.
If we were looking horrible, like if we were doing really poorly, somehow just know that we would know that. And I know she did a poll and I haven't heard anything.
Yeah.
So obviously we can't afford to do that. So, you know,
Get, what's his name? Sean, Data for Progress.
Will they come do a poll?
I don't know.
I mean, at this point, we still have like
John McElwee,
yeah,
I don't know.
But we'll see. I mean, I get a lot of positive feedback. I get a lot of people that, you know, most of our phone banking volunteers report. It generally sounds really good. And based on who we're calling are people that very district specific Democrats. We do call some non-parties because they have 2 weeks to change over to Democrats. So it's very strategic. And for the most part, we get very good. For every negative "I love Debbie" comment, which I get those, I could post something that has nothing to do with her, and someone will come on and go, "I love Debbie," and I'm like, "All right, well, that's great."
Right.
We love Debbie. But for every one of those, there's 10 comments that are the other side. So yeah, here's hoping.
Yeah. And Ross, you ran for office. I went to one of your events. What did
you run? What did you run for?
For state senate in New York City. It was a Democratic primary to take on a Republican. I lost the primary. I was the insurgent outsider against the establishment-backed Democrat, and I got over 40%, but did not win. He actually ended up unseating the Republican, so that was interesting. So that was 2 years ago. State senate in New York City. Andrew Gennardis, who defeated Marty Golden for state.
Okay, yeah.
He's a very low-key state senator. You'll probably never hear from him again.
No, I have for some reason, but yeah.
Yeah. So I ran myself. I know how difficult it is, how fun but lonely. It's like a mix of the two. You know, you enjoy it tremendously, but it's a lot of work, and it's hard as the outsider. I went for many labor endorsements, did not get them. Very frustrating. You know, got some endorsements, but definitely. You know, it was very great experience, very time consuming, and you learn a lot. I mean, I definitely learned a lot from the race in terms of things. If I ever did it again, how I would do it differently. You know, the importance of fundraising, of kind of building your operation early, and just first time candidates. You know, there's so much you don't realize that you don't know. And I covered politics for a long time and still do, and there's still a lot I did not know until I got in there and did it. So
it's hard. I think that it's interesting because I was thinking about it today, and it's not even that it's just a full-time job. This is my life. Like it's our life. Like it's constant. I'm at 3 o'clock I was at a photo shoot last night. I didn't get home until about 2 a.m. and you know, I hadn't even had dinner yet. So it's like, it's your life to do this.
Yeah.
It couldn't be.
No, it is. It's 24/7.
I mean, you know, I support publicly financed elections in a 3-month election cycle, and I think that this is the biggest waste of resources and money ever.
Yeah.
But it's necessary.
Yeah. And let's see, we should play a game. Who's worse, Cuomo or Debbie Wasserman Schultz?
Oh, I don't know. You know, I don't know enough about Cuomo. I don't know enough. I knew of his dad. I knew the good Cuomo.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Although, you have a little thing with Mario, don't you, Ross?
Yeah, I did a piece on Mario, how he actually wasn't that good. You can
That's sad.
Way better than either of his Spawn, though, right?
Somewhat. Andrew actually learned a lot of tricks from Mario. Is kind of the point of my piece. Actually,
Oh.
Mario was within New York State much more conservative than his reputation would suggest.
Oh.
Interesting.
But more, more inspirational, but also someone for those who knew him within state politics, what was not so it's not so hot. But I only vote Cuomo because he has more power. He runs the entire state of New York.
Right.
Debbie, one House member of many.
Right.
She is seeking to be chair of appropriations. That's on her to-do list this session. She
That
You
was-
should run after her. Say she's attempting. Say you should cancel her for trying to appropriate.
Well, I'm trying to put together an email to the House Ethics Committee, and then I'm going to CC all of the representatives in the Florida delegation. And my little roadblock, maybe one of you can help me, is the only way I can find emails is to email them directly through their pages, and I can't get an actual email. And I want an actual email so that I could write a letter to a bunch of people. So, I think, and if anything, and the truth is, it's probably not illegal. It's probably not illegal. It's just disgusting and unethical and pathetic. But I just think it's something that especially some of the Republican representatives in my state would have a heyday with.
Which part?
Just going after her because, it's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And,
but I mean, on the website thing or just in general, you're saying?
Yeah, no, just that it's so pathetic. I think that I'd love to I want to write an email to the House Ethics Committee and tell them that she's doing this and CC all of the congressional delegates from the state of Florida. And we were laughing, thinking like somebody like Matt Gaetz would probably find that very entertaining.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of which, Jen, do you want to just give listeners and viewers a roundup of why Wasserman Schultz is so bad?
She's just very corporate. She's corporate owned, and not just corporate, but pretty nefarious corporations. So everything from payday lenders, profit prisons, big sugar, private insurance, big pharma. I mean, and you can actually see the connection between the money she's. Oh, and she is also the second highest recipient of Democrats of police PAC money.
Right.
Which, after everything that's been going on. And so to see her speaking at a Black Lives Matter rally is incredibly infuriating. But the truth is it isn't even personal. 72% of people want Medicare for all, but she's not doing that. So really it's about, she's an insubordinate employee. That's our employee. We pay for her really nice health care. And she actually says we don't deserve that health care. And that's unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. So this isn't personal. I know people like to go at her and she's a very good villain and all that, but it isn't that. She's simply not doing her job.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
And speaking of enemy of my enemy, what is your piece about Tucker Carlson, Ross? Because you dropped it like an hour before you came on.
Yeah, so it was sort of just some musings on the future of the Republican Party. And there's a piece in Politico a little over a week ago about Tucker 2024. And I wrote, my argument basically was take it seriously, and that Tucker could be a serious candidate. Represents one future of the Republican Party, one strain, this kind of very nativist, economically populist strain, which was begun by Trump, but Trump, since he never thinks things through, didn't do the economic populism part, did the nativism part. And kind of you have, I would say, sort of two competing parts of the Trumpist wing. I don't really consider there a non-Trumpist wing. I think liberals will pretend that when Trump is gone, that his stamp disappears from the party. I think the opposite is true. I think the Republican Party for the near future is the Donald Trump party. He's going to keep weighing in on primaries. He's going to be very visible, unlike past presidents. And his policies have taken over the party, being anti-immigrant, being socially conservative, culturally conservative, and this sort of vague economic populism, very vague. And Trump is not a true populist by any means. Would never argue that. So the piece was about Tucker. Kind of Tucker is a more sophisticated, version of Trump, rejecting neoconservatism, embracing some economic populism, but also being pretty nativist, racist, and deeply incendiary in many ways. And also contrasting him with Tom Cotton and even Mike Pence, who's a bit of a cipher, but I do think will run for president. And looking at some of the differences, Cotton scares me the most as kind of a war hawk who is also not remotely a populist. He sort of is the darkest strain of the party. And you kind of work your way up from there. Talk about Josh Hawley a bit. It was kind of interesting, but also dangerous in some ways too. And then the other element of this, which you may find interesting, is about, if Joe Biden wins, he really, I think, has a 2-year window to do anything, because I do believe there will be a Republican backlash to Joe Biden. We saw it with Obama. He's a weak leader who will probably be elected president, but he's going to have a very short time frame to do things. And so Democrats have to be very cognizant of that there is a 2-year window, really, if you have the House and the Senate, to get a lot done and hope the Republican backlash does not consume your gains. And
you mean they don't have a lot of time to not pass Medicare for all?
Oh,
They don't have a lot of time to not.
You mean that public option? You mean spend 2 years fighting over a non-existent public option? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Medicare. Unfortunately, I think with Biden, Medicare for all is probably not going to happen.
That's what I'm saying. It's like
the only thing I've hoped for is like a very massive stimulus and kind of public works project. I do think Democrats have evolved on that. If you look at Obama, was very much with the Republicans on being worried about the deficit and really doing a very weak stimulus a decade ago. I think Biden, even like centrist Dems, kind of recognized that you've got to spend a lot of money to save people. And so that's my, in it being, from New York, or a coronavirus ravaged state. Now you have so many states that are ravaged by it. They need so much federal aid. I mean, you're talking about billions and billions of dollars. The optimist in me hopes there can be some movement toward a second New Deal type expenditure. I think that's I'm more hopeful for that than like a Medicare for all, because I think Joe Biden just won't touch it. He's corporatist in that way. But I also think that the centrist Dems are much more about stimulus spending and federal spending than they were a decade ago. And that's the biggest difference between the blue dogs of 2010, the blue dogs of 2020, where even the centrists are more willing to write like a blank check to bail out states. And so that it's a little bit about that too, but really how Joe Biden is doddering and weak, and so Democrats are really going to have to find a way in what I'd say I think is a relatively short window, because 2024 is going to come up quick, and if Joe Biden wins, never know what happens in 4 years, but the Republicans are going to be much stronger, playing with a much stronger hand in 24 than they are this year. They're on the defensive this year. I would be surprised at this point if they held the Senate. Could happen, but I think Democrats are set up for a pretty big anti-Trump landslide. And that this is the one election where having no real great values, it doesn't really matter, because people hate Trump enough where you're going to have a huge turnout of people who are going to throw him out. But after that, things get much harder. Trump is gone. He's not the foil. He's not the boogeyman. Right. Then you actually have to run on things again, which was Hillary's problem in 2016.
Right.
And that problem will return. Biden is lucky. He can, I call it the basement strategy. He can stay in the basement and win an election.
He can sleep through
Let me ask you something.
Do it after that, though.
Let me ask you something, Ross, because, you see Biden's doing better in the polls than Trump, but you see that enthusiasm number, that voter enthusiasm number is really low for Biden. And so especially with this coronavirus, I mean, the thing about Trump's people is they're going to vote for him. They're coming out. They're having flotillas on the water. Like, these people are, in 16, I saw a lot of Hillary signs. I did. I saw a lot of Hillary signs. I have seen, and now I'm even out everywhere more. I've seen 2 Biden signs in my district, 2. So they might be people that would vote for him in a poll and that would relinquish themselves to do that. But are they really going to go out of their way to do it? And I don't know. I mean, the fact that there's nobody that's excited about it, it doesn't bode well for me. Like, to think that he's going to do that. Well, I don't know.
I'm only optimistic for him because I think anti-Trump hatred so characterizes everything about the Democratic Party now that will be enough. Just, he's so polarizing and despised that people will go out of their way to vote against him, not for Biden, but against Trump. And I think for this year, it's enough. It's not enough for 22, for 24, and so on. But for this one cycle with coronavirus, with Trump just being so polarizing, we don't know. I mean, who knows, right? But Though the polls in 2016 weren't horribly off. I mean, Hillary did win the popular vote. She just lost these Midwestern states and Florida by these like very narrow margins. I just think Biden is kind of set up to win Florida. I think he's set up to win just these states that Hillary blew. I think he can just do the Obama thing, win the states Obama won, and that'll be enough. And you could close the deal with that, and then maybe steal away in Arizona or something. I don't know.
You think he's going to win Florida? You think Biden's going to win Florida?
That's nice. I mean, I'm not in Florida, so that's just
I'm not so sure. I'm not sure. Florida's pretty red.
Yeah, I mean, fairly. I mean, you almost had a Democratic governor by less than like 1% of the. DeSantis barely won, so I mean, it's a swing state. I mean,
that was kind
Democrats
of
are bad there at winning statewide, but Obama won it twice. That's why I just go back to Obama. Like he won the state twice.
Maybe you're right. I'm just, we have 60 something counties here. 6 of them are Democratic counties. The rest are red.
Yeah.
And it's just the way it is. So in order for Biden to win Florida, every single blue county needs to come out in full force because that's the only way to counteract the rest of the state. And that's why I think that enthusiasm number is actually going to come into play because Florida is a state that it is so close. And because it's so close, you need enthusiasm. Yeah. And you also need not to be in a pandemic. So
or as you said, Trump people will vote in a pandemic, right? In a way that Biden people won't because
that's what I'm wondering. I think if it's a typical year.
Question. It's a big question, and I don't know the answer. Just my sense is Biden's in a much stronger position than Hillary was in 2016. I would say that.
Yeah.
Trump is not the exciting outsider anymore. He is the crappy president. Who kind of been there, done that. So, I don't know. I agree. There's no enthusiasm for Biden at all. At all. I think this is the one election. It hasn't been true before. It's the one election, and you may be able to get away with it. That's kind of my only.
Yeah, well, this is all very once in a lifetime situation stuff. Like there is nothing in play. Like there is no, campaigning during a pandemic 101.
Right.
No.
And so it's just all, and they can't know what they're doing any more than we know what we're doing because they've never campaigned in a pandemic either.
Yeah, and I didn't think of this until you mentioned this. I almost called you Debbie, Jen. But like how that will make a difference in terms of, I mean, who knows what it'll be, but. No, we will be in this in November. It will probably the people who are going to, get out and vote despite the recommendations are probably going to be Trump people.
You'll have a lot more Trump. You will have more Trump people that are willing to go out and vote.
And also, it's funny, in 2016, I interviewed literally on election day, I interviewed Ben Jealous. And we spent the interview talking mostly about like, how to hold Hillary Clinton accountable and make her somewhat progressive, blah, blah. And at the end of the interview, I jokingly said, like, we should tape 2 endings in case Trump wins and in case Hillary wins. And Ben Jealous like, And he's like, fear the possibility of a Trump win. And he laid out, he was like, likely vote. We tend to think of unlikely voters as Black and Latino voters, people who are like in France, who the Voting Rights Act applied to. But there's another kind of unlikely voter, the white, lower income, less educated white voter. And they're called cicada voters, like they don't vote they sit out a couple of elections so they don't get polled. And he said that there are 2 things that bring those people out, celebrities and extremism. And of course, Trump. And it was like, yeah. So you never know.
With Trump, you never know.
And with polling, you never know.
No.
Yeah. I was shocked by Trump. I also in 2016 cautioned people a bit in that he's the nominee of a major party. He had a shot. People were acting like he had no shot in hell. I mean, he's running on the Republican banner. That's going to give him 40-something% of the vote just for showing up. So, it's funny. I think last time liberals underestimated him. Now my sense is liberals are overestimating him a bit. November is a long time away. The only thing I've ever believed about this 2020 election going back years is that turnout would just be very high. Obviously, the pandemic scrambles that a bit. I just think turnout will be historically high because so many people are going to like make the effort to vote against Donald Trump, and he's just that despised. Coronavirus is the wrinkle there, so that's always the caution. But you know, my feeling is people will find a way to vote against Trump, and if that's the case, if turnout even spikes to where it was when Obama ran, Trump is in a lot of trouble. Just because, again, his victory in 2016 was incredibly fluky. It was premised on these very narrow margins in a handful of states. You know, I think the only place I'd agree with Democrats, the outside factor that affected 2016 was the Jim Comey announcement in late October. I do think that probably swayed things. I'm not a Russiagate person at all. Yeah. Not interesting to me. Facebook ads are Facebook ads, and Hillary Clinton could have ran Facebook ads too. She did, but not good ones. So it is what it is. But you know, it's just a strange, narrow, weird election. This one too could be strange and weird. I think the biggest difference is I don't see kind of like those twists and turns where I just think most people have made up their minds, right? It's a question of are they going to vote or not. Like everyone knows you hate Trump or you like Trump. Like who? I don't think there are many people kind of weighing their options anymore. I think 2016 a lot. You get a lot of Gary Johnson voters, more than Jill Stein voters. I always bring it up to like the
I know.
Gary Johnson blame us. They always blame us.
The left, not the libertarians. Yeah.
Gary Johnson was sucking more votes out from Trump than Stein was from Clinton. Stein ran before, so she wasn't new. So I just don't think there's many green libertarian voters out there this time. I think people are just kind of like, this is the one election. A lot of people are just going to suck it up and vote Dem, even leftists, anarchists, people who generally are not a part of that game at all. But we'll see.
We forgot Kanye.
I saw that comment.
He's on the ballot. He's got to get on the ballot.
It's serious though. I'm sorry. It just doesn't strike me as remotely plausible.
He's got to get on the ballot.
Well, now, especially if Deborah Messing has her, you know, I'm sure that Kanye has seen the Deborah Messing tweets about this.
Yeah.
And if he hasn't, she's going to have Stacey Abrams call Kanye.
Nina.
Nina too, obviously,
was white-splaining to Nina.
And said if she didn't understand it, she was going to have, I'll have Stacey Abrams call you this week. Oh yeah.
As soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, that's not going to go over well.
No.
So
Nina's not going to stand for that.
No.
This is a good comment, by the way. Tucker is the type who was in high school talent show. Very true.
Yeah. I mean, Tucker's Tucker's a country club Republican who reinvented himself for the moment. You know, you can call him a fraud. That's very fair, but he read the room, as they say. And now he's like a Trump, you know, populist nativist Republican. He wasn't that, you know, 5 or 6 years ago. So yeah, I mean, Tucker took an opportunity, ran with it. Megyn Kelly was the star of Fox. She went down, you know, and Tucker really surpassed her. So
yeah,
that's why I don't underestimate Tucker in that he's got the highest rated, I think, cable TV show, like anywhere. It's real. So after Trump, he's the type. If Tucker got in for 24, take him seriously. Kanye, I only don't take seriously because he's got to get on the ballot. If you told me Kanye's on the ballot in 50 states, he's like spending millions of dollars of his own money, you'd be like, okay, he's gonna be a factor. If he's just gonna tweet and be on the ballot in 2 states and spend no money, then no, he's got to be on the ballot. So my sense is no on Kanye unless
it's a stunt. I think it's more of a stunt than anything. Everything with him is that.
You know, grappling with things. You know, I hope he's okay. So yeah, if he's not on the ballot, I don't take him seriously.
Yeah. Well, this was great, guys. Thank you so much. And it was a great combination. And again, if you're just tuning in, make sure you check out Ross on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle?
It's just at Ross Barkan. You can check me out. Check out my Substack, which I started recently. It's just rossbarkan.substack.com. It's called The Cuomo Files. And you can read me in The Guardian and The Nation and other publications as well.
And you, Jen, where can people find you?
We are gen2020.com. We need volunteers for phone banking. We need money. And we are at GenFL23 on Facebook, or I'm sorry, on Twitter and Instagram. Facebook is Gen2020.
Facebook what?
Gen2020 on Facebook.
Okay. And what happens now with your website?
With my website?
Yeah, I mean, what happens if people enter in?
Oh no, Gen 2020 is my website. That is my website.
Okay.
Gen2020.com is my website.
Right, but if people,
They just bought the Jen Perelman, which is like an old underhanded campaign tactic. They do that
Right.
like in New York. They do that a lot. They like in like random city council races. They'll just buy
Right.
up the names
And then it's not that she bought them up. It
sort of
isn't
an amateur
Yeah.
move by someone who's in Congress.
That's the thing, is that she
More of
used it to direct
Kind
to
of
her
city
website.
council move.
right? Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Not
But
a
that's Florida for you,
former
right?
DNC chair move.
Yeah, yeah, right. Well, she was kind of sloppy, right? Isn't that part of the point?
She also ended up losing them over 1,000 seats or something like
Right.
that during her tenure.
But
And whatever she did financially, Ross, you might know more than me, but it ended up where they were basically dependent on the Clinton Foundation for funding because she ran the DNC into the ground.
yeah, the DNC.
And this is who wants to be chair of appropriations.
Yeah.
Well,
Debbie's a New Yorker, at least you can say that much.
Really?
She's from Long Island, and then
Oh,
she
of
went
course
down
she is,
to Florida for college, and then
Oh my God.
stayed there. She stayed, so she was our issue originally.
Oh yeah. Well,
Thanks for that.
yeah,
Yeah.
seriously. Well, this is true. Some Gardner Trump did that to Jeb.
Yeah,
People did no name, but that is so Trumpian. I mean, that's
Trump move.
perfect.
Trump
He
move.
wasn't a sitting congressperson that had it directed to his congressional page.
I mean, but let's be honest, as president, he would totally do that. But it's a Trump
yes.
thing. It's not a
Yeah.
Wasserman Schultz thing. Like, they're supposed to be the moral party and everything.
Oh, well.
But,
It's true. I think it's true. The anti-corporatists rights. She's going to claim some random dude did it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Maybe the
That's fine.
Russians.
She
Yeah.
can claim whatever she wants.
Yeah.
You know, people will know. People
Right.
know.
If Debbie were inviting you to come forward and say that right away now, because if you if that were true, you'd be making the case. Oh, we got to bring on our final guest, Kelly, who has a very important thing to say. Kelly. Oops.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Kelly.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. I've been behind the scenes at a couple of things that you've done, Jen. So
Oh,
I know you, but you don't know me.
okay. That's a little creepy, but okay.
I mean, you've just been doing like progressive independent
Yeah,
media
I have. Yeah.
circuit. So, I wanted to come on to ask everybody who's watching on YouTube right now and later to subscribe to Katie's channel. And most of you are subscribers and have hit the notifications, but also tell everyone you know.
Yeah.
Tell everyone you know, however you do that, whether it's like Facebook, Twitter. Nobody does in person anymore. It's illegal mostly.
Yeah.
But by any means possible, because Katie is getting a lot of viewership from some very loyal people, and it's a great start. But
Viewers like you.
what?
From viewers like you, I was just telling them.
Yeah,
My NPR thing. Yeah, spiel. Yeah.
My computer I may cut out. So if my computer cuts out, I want to make sure I say goodbye in case
Okay.
it may have a tech issue. But
Okay.
yeah, just in case I drop off. But
Yeah.
it's great to be here.
You.
Yeah.
Yes, nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, but Katie, you have a very loyal following, and I think that there's a much bigger audience potential, and the number of views you're getting compared to the ratio of views to subscribers is, I've never seen it. I've never seen it before. It's so high.
Oh,
Like,
really? Oh, great. Look at that. I had no idea. See, I'm not the
That's
numbers
cool.
person. Yeah.
What'd
Yeah.
you say?
I'm not the
That's
numbers
cool.
person.
Yeah, it is very cool. It's a great sign. So, I mean, I have said before, like, Katie deserves a bigger audience. And, I worked for, and, Katie's heard this a billion times, but I still work for Sam Cedar at the Majority Report. And I worked on his YouTube channel when it was much, 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 much smaller. And I just really thought he deserved a much bigger audience. And I think that Katie does too. So I'm going to work just as hard for her.
Thank you.
No, I will work just as hard, but I'm a little older now, so it's harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take advantage of Kelly. I mean, not that Sam did. Anyway, yeah. All right. If I go Jimmy Dore, you will have a much bigger audience, or Joe Rogan. Yeah, I'll go on Joe Rogan. Yeah. But yeah, I know Jimmy. I've been on Jimmy's show. He's been on mine. I would love to go back on it. Well, thank you, Kelly. She gets to play the bad cop. Not even the bad cop, the nudging cop, and I don't have to do that. Yeah. But thank you guys. And anything else? Any final thoughts from anyone?
Just thank you for inviting me on it last minute.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, come back, both of you. Oh, look at this.
I want to thank
Gamer channels on YouTube that get over 30,000. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's what Twitch is too.
My son, my
Really?
14-year-old spends an inordinate amount of time watching other people play video games, and I do not understand the fun of that at all. That's what they do. That's what these kids do.
Yeah.
I want to thank you both, Ross and Jen, for running for office.
Thank you.
I've done too many weird things in my life to ever choose to do.
I thought that too. I always said the 3 reasons I could never run for office is I don't lie, I can't be bought, and I smoke weed. And it's like now apparently those are like selling points.
You might be right. You might be right. But I mean, it just like you were saying, it is. I've learned a lot about it recently, especially because I work with Nomiki as well, and she does a lot of candidate interviews, and just hearing people that are like Cori Bush working as a nurse doing 12-hour overnights while running is the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. Just working as a nurse and doing that kind. I mean,
but Cori Bush is like, she's like a goddess. You know what I mean? Like Cori Bush,
she's been on the show.
Cori Bush is not like just an everyday person. I just want to say, I've met her in person. I can attest to this. She is very she's power.
She is next level, and she is just an incredible activist and a great candidate. And but I mean, and that's while being a single mother. And then
I thought like that about even Michaela Wilkes running and working her job, while she was running against Steny Hoyer. I mean, I am so fortunate that I don't have to do that. It is such a privilege that I don't have to do that. But most of these candidates that I have met are working full-time jobs while doing this.
Yeah, it's insane, and you're right. It shouldn't be a privilege.
No.
It should be publicly funded if you want to run, and people should be able to judge people on their policies. And it's unfortunate that that's not the way that it is. And even though you're not working while you're running, it's a lot of work to run, especially when you're running against someone like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who has just such name recognition that, I mean, just that alone has way more power than it should. But it sounds like you're really well positioned.
I hope so. I mean, look, this is one of those things, seriously, where we could go in and maybe we just do amazing and just totally kick her ass. Or we could go in and I could get my clock cleaned. It could be and because we can't poll, because I can't afford to do a poll, there's really no way to know. There's no way to know. It's sort of like we can make as many contacts, as many mailers. We're very strategic. We've got the field, all of it. And there's no way to know what's going to actually happen for our election.
Yeah. But, I appreciate what you're saying about independent media. Obviously, it's what I do and what I value, but take the cable news.
Yeah.
Oh, they won't come around. No, if they were to invite me, I would, but I would certainly not ever give like preferential treatment to those news sources.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Versus the people that have been covering me and following this and that are actual journalism people. So that's my priority. And technically, my first interview, win or lose, is with Jordan Cheriton, because Jordan was the first person to come around and the first person to give me airtime and the first person. And I take that very seriously. Like, I'm very loyal. So to me, what goes around comes around.
That is very true in this case. Yeah. And, I think that what you said, and I say that about myself, that I'm honest to a fault. I'm not good at lying at all. And I think that really does come across with you. Like that has been my impression in your interviews, and it's a great quality. And then, but I also, then when I see it in other people, I wonder if people who aren't honest people are able to see it. I don't know.
Look, for me, it's really simple. And like I said, I partake in the cannabis, and this is something that's been going on my whole life, and something I actually learned from my dad, who also is a partaker in the cannabis.
Oh, right.
And one of the things he handed down to me is the best way to never have to worry about what you're saying to anybody is just tell the truth. So you never have to remember your story. You don't have to remember who knows what and who know. I don't have the mental wherewithal in here. I really don't, to play those games. I just don't. So if you always tell the truth, then you don't ever have to remember what you said. And
I know.
so it's self-serving to me, in some respects, but it's true.
Yeah. I mean, it does make life a lot easier, but I mean, sometimes people, like when I said, I'll tell the truth to a fault. It's not always the greatest.
No, but that's how it should be. You know what I mean? And, I would rather someone tell me the truth and hurt my feelings than lie to me and sort of it takes away your power. It's sort of like humiliating or shamed when someone's lying behind your back or lying about you. I would much rather have hurt feelings than have somebody be disingenuous of me. Feelings are just feelings. So if somebody tells you something that's not nice, it might hurt your feelings. That's not great, but I infinitely prefer that than somebody kind of making a fool of me.
Yeah, we had a great mental health, self-care, self-help session earlier with Kate. Just to get you back on. Yeah, it was actually really good. Yeah.
Good.
It's reminding me, you're talking about the feeling stuff. Yeah.
No, but feelings are just feelings. They come and go. You can't
I got to remind myself that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true though.
It does. It sounds like we have that in common, but honest to God, does anyone care about weed anymore? Are you serious?
Debbie still calls it a gateway drug.
Oh,
and she does. And is that because she's really puritanical and really thinks that? Or is it because she takes big pharma and alcohol money?
Right. And Biden people, apparently, according to Normal, this website, this organization for legalization, they said that, Normal, they said that Biden's thing actually sucks. His thing on marijuana, some technicalities make it not as good as it.
You can bet that if somebody like Joe Biden goes to sort of legalize marijuana, it's going to be in a way to benefit top corporations that can seize control over the industry. It's not going to be because it's a benefit to us as consumers. So we had one piece of legislation in Florida they were trying to put through that didn't allow for home grow and essentially would have allowed sort of a big pharma type of monopoly over the cannabis industry. And so that doesn't help us at all. So unless we get legislation that really is for regular people, then even legalizing is still corporatization of the industry. So it still essentially hurts us because it makes it so that one person controls all the weed in the state. And that doesn't help us at all.
Yeah. No, what happened to that lady who burned ballots instead of giving them to the court in Broward County, Florida?
Oh, nothing, actually. That was Brenda Snipes. She was our supervisor of elections. She was friends with Debbie. And Tim Canova had actually filed a lawsuit about the impropriety in our election. And she knew that this was a pending lawsuit was happening, and she destroyed the ballots, and she had destroyed them within the 22 months. You're required by the FEC. You have to hold on to them. I believe it's 22 months after an election, you have to hold on to the ballots. And she destroyed them at about 18 months right after finding out they were the subject of litigation, which to me is even worse to do, like, because now it's not even unintentional. Now it's, that they're subject to litigation and you're just torching them. She destroyed the ballots, and there was, she got a summary judgment. There was a summary judgment, and yet nobody prosecuted her. Nobody did anything. She had a nice retirement, a nice pension. Nothing. And that's a huge problem, is that there's no repercussions for that behavior. But so she is still out there. She is no longer our supervisor of elections, I'm happy to say. But she still got to leave with a lot of money.
Wow, that really sucks.
Yeah. Isn't that, there's no accountability here whatsoever. None.
Yeah.
Crime actually does pay kids. Crime does.
Yeah.
It's really sad, but it's true. And it's just, for me, it's not worth it because I have to be able to sleep with myself at night. And that's just not something that would feel good to me. That's not how I roll.
Yeah.
But if you can live with that, and you're, I think it's sort of sociopathic, but if you can live with that, sure.
Yeah.
That is psychotic behavior. the burning ballot.
Yeah, it really is. That's really funny. I don't think I knew about that.
Well, I don't know that she actually burned them. She destroyed them. So they're using the word burned like she started a campfire. Right. We just know that she destroyed the ballots while knowing they were the subject of pending litigation. And nothing happened to her for doing so.
Well, guys, I have to go. You guys can keep chatting. I
gotta go too. Okay. I gotta even get all redone.
I'm worried I have appendicitis.
You have appendicitis?
I'm worried I have it. What side is that? It's on the right side?
Jason!
I haven't had an appendix for my whole life.
What do you mean?
I had to have surgery when I was like 3 or 4 months old. So they just took it. They just did a double.
Okay. Took it out. Yeah, you don't need it anyway, right? I'm so paranoid. Is Jason a doctor?
Yeah, my husband's a doctor. Yeah, he's a urologist, but he would definitely know what side the appendix is on.
Yeah,
so
I think it's the right side. Yeah, it's probably gas, someone said. I hope so.
Oh my gosh, sure. Like if I could talk to your husband and Katie's dad.
Yeah, my dad's a psychiatrist, so I'll just ask him. But
neurological problems. It's funny, people think it's only men, and he has a lot of women. There's a lot of women.
How bad is the I'm sure it's fine. It is on the right side. I knew that. Shit. All right. I'm so paranoid. Being Jewish and having a dad as doctors, a bad combo.
Is that you? Okay, he's right here. What side of the body is the appendix on? Like on my side?
We already know.
Right, it's on the right.
I know. I'm paranoid. That's why I'm afraid I have it.
Appendicitis. What are those symptoms? What does she need to worry about? Yeah, pain in the right lower quadrant. Diarrhea?
No, just pain. Just a sharpish pain.
Fever? Okay.
No, I don't think so.
So it could be a lot of things, but maybe you should get that checked out.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
On that note, I'll keep you guys posted. Oh my God. I'm fine.
Yeah. Let me know what happens with that. It was nice to meet you, Kelly.
Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Oh my God. Garden gnome. That's terrible. All right. Bye.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye. I'm sure I'm fine. Bye.
Feel better, Katie.